Hi guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Happy Chirp. Today I have with me Hadia Shahid, who happens to be the founder of Gramit Co. She basically owns this digital marketing agency and she's doing a wonderful job when it comes to digital marketing and mostly influencer marketing. So in this podcast, we've talked about the entire industry, and I feel like if you've been curious at all about how we content creators work, what does the industry behind look like, you know, ये काम होता कैसे है, इसमें है क्या, then there's a lot of in-depth discussion on that. Especially if you are interested in this industry at all, I think there's just so much insight. If you're a new entrant, there's so much insight. And even if you're just a consumer of content on the internet, if you follow any influencers at all, this podcast I think you should listen to, because it will make you realize and understand so many things that you don't even know that happen behind the scenes. The good and the bad and the ugly and all kinds of stuff. We have talked about every single aspect of this industry. You know, what are the flaws? What are the great things about it? So there's a lot in here. So without any more delay, let's get into it. Here's Hadia. Hi Hadia, how are you?
Hi Hamna, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you Hadia for coming and taking out the time to do this with me. I know that you have a busy schedule as well. We've known each other for so long now. कब से हम बात करते हैं, and we finally got to meet in person.
Yes.
We've had a working relationship where Hadia has been on the digital, on the industry side, I've been on the influencer side. And she's actually one of the few people जो digital or digital agency side पे हैं who are doing a really, really good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So thank you for your contributions in this industry. That's what I will say.
Yeah, thank you Hamna. And like I just want to put it out there, like in a digital world where you're constantly just, you know, me and Hamna have been talking for work since 2018, 2019, and we never really got the chance to meet. And it becomes so difficult to connect with people in real life when you're just working in this digital space. But with Hamna, I was really, really comfortable coming in today. A, because we've had like a really good working relationship, and B, because I think I really respect the work that you do, especially with your podcast and the kind of messages that you're putting out there. And you've had such amazing women come in before me that it's such an honor for me to come in today and also be on this platform. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Hadia. Okay, so before we get into, you know, a discussion on everything, I just want to talk a bit about you first. So Hadia, where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
All right. So I lived in the UK initially. So I was born here, then my family moved to the UK for a couple of years. I stayed there for a few years, and then I moved back to Pakistan when I was 12 years old. And then I've lived in Lahore since. And, you know, I went to LUMS. I did my undergrad in accounting and finance. And while doing that, I realized that finance is not what I want to pursue. So I think I'm literally the poster child for you can pursue anything you want in life. You don't have to stick to what you've done in university or what you've studied. So I was an ACF major. I completed my degree in finance. I never worked in finance a day in my life. I graduated and I realized I wanted to do something else. So I went for HR. And then I worked in HR for 5 years. So I worked in corporate HR from 2014 till 2019.
And where was that?
In various local companies.
Okay.
And then I ended up in a multinational company in Lahore. And in the middle of all of that, I realized that I wasn't happy in a corporate job. I wasn't enjoying it at all. The corporate culture didn't suit me. So I was lucky that I had like a really interesting role. My last role was the culture, diversity and engagement lead, which is a very unique role for Pakistan. I don't think a lot of companies have it. And that's when I kind of realized that I was a very creative person and I like doing things that allowed me to be creative. And I think at that time, my sister recommended that I should look into setting up something of my own. And she recommended, why don't you get into influencer marketing? And this was back in 2018. So while doing my corporate job, I also started working on my own agency. And I started reaching out to brands. I got like my very first client was Packages Mall. Then I started working with with Uber. And once I had like a few clients, I left my job and started doing influencer marketing full time. So now I have, my agency's been running since 2018, 2019 full time. And so that was a move from accounting and finance to HR, to marketing, to entrepreneurship. In 2021, I launched my own activewear brand. So I have done a little bit of various things.
Yeah.
And I really believe that you can always reinvent yourself,
Yeah.
and you should be reinventing yourself to keep up with the changing times. The world is such that, things change so drastically, so quickly. When I was in university, even though I went to LUMS, which is a really good university, they never encouraged us to, pursue something different. They never encouraged us to set up your own thing. It was all very corporate culture, corporate hustle, get into the corporate world. You have that defined career ladder. One step leads to the next. And honestly, Hamna, when I was in the corporate world, they would tell me that if you want to become the director of HR, you have to do this and this. And I was like, but I don't see myself living the life that these people are living.
So they're kind of already setting you up for that rat race, right? They're showing it to you.
Yes, they are. And it comes at the cost of your mental health. It comes
Agreed.
at the cost of your own well-being. And it really takes a toll on you. And I think I'm so grateful that I got out of that. Because it is very lucrative. You have a fixed income coming in. It's a good income, so many perks, so many benefits. It's very difficult to let go of it. And I wanted to be, financially independent. It's not even like I didn't need the financial independence. I did. But I'm so grateful that I got out of it, because when I did, that's when I realized that how unhappy I actually was, how much my mental health was suffering, and how grateful I am now that I have flexibility, that I can work remote hours, I can work, flexible hours, I can work remotely, I don't have to be in one place, I don't have to go into the same building every day, sit on the same desk. I think for some people, they find comfort in that, the stability but for me, that's not exciting. Yeah. And now I get to work with different clients, different brands. Every day is completely different for me, the kind of work I'm doing. I'm reaching out to new people. I work with so many different influencers, so many different brands. And that's what excites me. I can't imagine being in the same company, in the same career for years and years. Like, I think previous generations did that and it worked for them. I can't do that. And my message to anybody is that, always be open to reinventing yourself. Never be afraid to switch careers. If you're not happy, you can't live your life like that. Honestly, it's so draining. It really takes away. And, I'm an introvert. I'm not even an extroverted person. So for me, to take that leap of starting your own business, it's so scary. Reaching out to people, talking to people, it is so intimidating when you're an introvert. But, I'm proud of myself that I was able to do it. I was able to break out of my shell, and I think I've personally grown so much.
And done it successfully,
Yes, alhamdulillah. So even, maybe a couple of years ago, for me to come in and sit in a podcast would have been so daunting and intimidating. But today I was actually excited. I wasn't scared. And even though, yes, we've spoken so many times, but I haven't even met you in person before. And I was like, no, it's cool. I know Hamna. So, it's you really grow as a person when you do your own thing. But I think I also would recommend to anybody who's graduating or coming into their career, their professional career, doing a job first is really, really good. It really trains you. It really teaches you a lot. And then if you want to do something of your own, and I know you've done numerous businesses, and I've been really inspired by that as well, especially your planner. That was I loved it so much.
Thank you so much.
So I think, there are less barriers to entry now. You have so much with the digital space offering you, the world on your fingertips. So for the younger generation, I think, you should really be exploring different careers. Don't stick to what we've been doing for so long. Just corporate jobs should not just be your only aspiration.
Yeah. And I think, especially in this day and age, it's so important to evolve and pivot. And recently I was just thinking that we kind of really hold on to things like never give up or don't give up, right? Yes. While that's a very important thing as well, but it's so important to also recognize when it's time to give up.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to really be able to see that this is something that's not serving me anymore. Yeah. And we talk a lot about these days about people becoming toxic and, relationships not serving you anymore. But the same goes when it comes to work. It's important for you to identify, okay, no matter how much money or effort you've put into something, if it's not giving you what you want at this point, you can step away from it.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in that. It takes a lot of courage to do it.
Yeah, it takes courage.
And you know, I'll be honest, there's no perfect time for it either. I remember when I was trying to leave my job, I kept waiting for the perfect time. When I'll feel financially secure enough, when will I feel confident enough, when will I have faith, कि, oh, I have enough clients, enough work coming in. There's never going to be a perfect time. You just have to take that leap of faith. And you know, the worst case scenario can be it doesn't work out. And you can always pivot again. So it's a lot of hard work, obviously, that to reinvent yourself or to pivot. But like you said, you need to be able to identify when something isn't serving you anymore, and then have the wisdom and the strength to just kind of step away from it.
Yeah.
Even, and you know, when I was stepping away from my job, a lot of people didn't understand it, including like when I resigned, my company kept saying, oh, so you're taking a break? And I was like, no, I'm doing my own thing. And they kept saying, so you're taking a break? And I was like, no, my own thing is a serious thing that I'm doing. It's not a break. And same with a lot of friends. They were like, you know, why don't you just take a sabbatical so that you have that backup? And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to cut ties and just be out there.
Rip that band-aid and put, actually, you know, you really have to put yourself in that position where there is no other choice left but to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to, you know, aadhi tang idhar, aadhi tang udhar, to wo, like, your comfort zone, which could be money, stability, whatever packages and perks you have, like, will keep pulling you back. And I obviously understand we can't speak for everyone. People who obviously desperately need money, they have to do whatever limited choices they have. But for people who do, right, like, I think one of the great privileges that people who have privilege is that they can make decisions that are not fear-based. Like, they can actually choose to do things out of, you know, they can make those decisions out of love. Like, what do I want to do, right? What do I feel like doing? But, like, people still tend to stick
to the safe option.
It's like, you know, they're not willing to take that risk.
It is a privilege to be able to decide what you want to do, if you want to pursue something that excites you. But at the same time, it is also very, very scary.
Oh, it's so scary.
And like, even in my own case, my job was giving me a fixed income and I needed that income and I was happy with that income. But the environment at work or the corporate culture wasn't serving me mentally and emotionally. And I was in a place where, you know, I think we don't talk about it enough, and I do want to talk about it. It's workplace bullying. I think workplace bullying is so common, and a lot of it really impacts your mental health. And until when you're in it and you're experiencing it, sometimes you can't even identify it. And then when you're out of it, you're like, oh, wow, this is what I was going through and this is how I felt. And that happened to me. And, you know, for me, stress was so bad. Like, I had acne issues. I was drained all the time because my body reacts to stress. And I wasn't even aware of that. And when I stepped away from it all and I found joy in my work, that's when I realized, oh, wow. And it is a privilege to be able to do that, you know, to be able to, but it took a lot of hard work as well, Hamna. It was like, I started from scratch.
For sure, yeah, I know. Yeah.
I started from scratch, and I remember I used to just send out cold emails to different, because I had no experience in influencer marketing. I had no experience in marketing. It was cold email, there was cold outreach, it was kind of leveraging my network, trying to get meetings in. And I'm grateful that, you know, some clients had the faith, because I was trying to bring about strategy to influencer marketing, which was completely missing back in the day. It is still, I feel, missing even now when we do influencer marketing. But tab to bilkul bhi nahi thi. And I think a lot of people that I spoke to, and I was also lucky that at that time startup culture was kind of booming in Pakistan, so we had all these young startups and young people working at startups, so they were more receptive towards working with somebody who was just starting out, as opposed to an agency that had been around for years and was doing things the same old way.
Right.
So I had that in my favor, I would say, definitely, but a lot of hard work went into it. And I think that's what we sometimes want to skip. We want, oh, you know, let's have the easy way. We want to do something differently and it's going to happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to really put in the hard work. If you want to reinvent yourself, if you want to skip, you have to put in the hard work. You have to do the research. You have to educate yourself, and then you have to reach out to people, talk to people, And that takes time.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like a year and a half of doing that until I found, okay, fine, now I understand what I want to do. Let's do it full time.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't miss out on, you can't skip the hard work.
You can't skip the hard work. And you know, when you do skip the hard work, then you're doing something wrong.
It shows as well then your work.
Yeah, and whatever that you're going to achieve is not going to be sustainable. Like you can't sustain it then, because if you're taking shortcuts, then you are missing a very essential
the learning curve itself.
the foundation which this is going to stand upon for the longest time. So you have to do the grunt work, and you have to do everything yourself in the start, and you have to make the cold calls, and you have to go through, like you can't skip the process.
And the process itself is rewarding in so many ways.
Yes, for sure.
In so many ways. So you have to do it. And I feel the same with influencers, by the way. Like we see the influencer space growing so much, and there's some people who've been around for so long, and I can see the difference in their understanding of the influencer industry compared to people who maybe are trying to find just like a shortcut. Okay, fine, we've entered the industry and we're going to try and make it. But, you know, the industry is growing, and only those people can survive who have actually gone through a process, and they've understood what their audience wants and how to add value, maybe, to the kind of content that they're putting out there. And I mean, even in your case, I know you've kind of reinvented yourself so many times, and that's also like an inspiring thing to see, that, you know, there are people out there who can do that. You don't have to stick to what you've always done and what you've always known. You can. And I see a lot of people who are even moving out right now of Pakistan, and they're reinventing themselves. I'm sure it's very scary for them.
I know.
But they're doing it,
scary,
right? And that's inspiring. It's inspiring to let go of your comfort and go out and do something different.
Yeah, I think every time you pivot, it's scary. So, you know, every time I feel like, okay, you know, what I used to do, it's not resonating with me. It's not even serving me, right? I need to change the way I do things. Or, for example, sometimes, you know, circumstances aren't in your control. So you know, if you look at Instagram, right, that was my main platform. So the way it started to what it has become now, it's
completely
very different,
yeah.
Right? So maybe, you know, it used to work out for me. Now I don't like the way that that platform is, right? So, and that's when you have to like make a decision. Okay, maybe I need to pivot from this platform. Maybe I need to do YouTube full time. And that is a very difficult decision for somebody who's made everything on that platform and now has to like switch, right? And there's always that, you know, I was recently reading this, that for creatives, they have to pivot, and they have to, right? Creatives don't have a choice, and it's not just a content creator. Creatives in any industry.
Absolutely.
You have to pivot. You have to evolve.
Absolutely.
And when you evolve and you pivot your art, or whatever you were doing, you will always, like, the fear is that people are already used to the way that you are. And when you're going to change, a lot of people are going to leave.
Yeah.
Right? Your audience, people that follow you for whatever you're doing right now, they're going to leave. They're going to be like, okay, what she's doing right now, this doesn't interest me. I don't care about this. So I'm going to like unfollow and leave. And you know that that's going to happen. So taking that big step, you know you're going to lose out on a lot, but then you have to do it, and then you have to build, and then the new people will come along.
They'll find you. You'll find your new audience.
But that's the step we have to take, where you're like, and it's scary, right? Where you have that fear that, okay, मैंने ये सब build किया है और मैं इसको focus नहीं कर रही हूँ, side पे कर रही हूँ.
What you worked towards your entire life has been one thing, and now you're like, oh, this isn't working out. What can, you know, it is scary. It's inherently scary to just say, oh, everything I've done and built up, it's now different.
Yeah.
But change is constant.
Change is constant. That is the only constant. And if you have to grow, like, it's like, आप उस वक्त अपना short term देख रहे हो, okay, you know, I'm gonna, this pivoting, you know, if I pivot, I'm gonna lose all these people, or क्या होगा, because you don't even know if the next thing is gonna work out for you. It's the same as, you know, you leaving your job. You don't even know if it's gonna work out for you. It might not. And then you would have given up all of that
so that
without knowing कि अच्छा आगे क्या होगा. तो वो part भी बहुत scary होता है कि अच्छा अगर आप उस पे अब आगे इतनी मेहनत कर भी लो and it doesn't work out, then how do you go back from there? These are risks you have to take. इसी में, like, I always tell younger people that, you know, like, especially if you are creative and you have to pivot, and again all your money is depending on this, all your income is depending on this, so then the stakes are higher, right, for you to explore. Like, I have a family, right? So it's just like, how many risks can you take?
Absolutely.
But the younger you are, Like, it's the best time. Explore, take the risk, pivot, evolve.
I agree.
You know,
you can experiment a lot and you can figure out what, because some people, I feel they know what they want to do in their life from a very young age, and like, good for them. I wasn't one of those people.
I think very few people know, Hadia.
That's true. Very few people, and even that can change with time. It's not going to stay the same. But I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life, and it was a lot of like, experimenting, trying new things, and even now I want to try new things. But you're right, the risk appetite obviously goes down. You have like, you've done so much, you've built something, you can't constantly keep on changing. But I love trying new things. Although I find it very scary because I get really anxious whenever I have to do something new, but I also find it very, very exciting.
I mean that's the same for me. Like I have to evolve, I have to change. But like when you grow and like when you have family, you have kids, you're paying all the bills yourself. It's not just about you anymore. It's not about you and your
have
excitement
other factors to absolutely
to experiment or to change or switch. But I feel like you still have to do it.
You still have to do it.
Yeah, you have to figure out how to still do it.
Because like you said, for example, in content creation, the social media platforms keep changing. If I look at that from an agency perspective, strategies that I used to pitch before, they won't work now. And a lot of my clients, sometimes they say to me, oh, we got this video made like a year ago, or can we do something similar? And I'm like, no, we can't, because before, if you were doing a video that was like 2 minutes long, now nobody's going to watch a 2-minute long video. And in the past, they might have, and it would have worked. But now we have to stick to very short content, which means the content has to be in a way that it's very engaging. It has to be very trendy, but at the same time, we have to get the brand pointers across. So then I have to find a strategy that is both serving my client, but is also, trendy enough to get traction on social media, because getting reach has become so difficult, especially on Instagram. So you have to find that balance. So I have to then constantly be aware of the trends and work on making sure that I'm able to give the right strategies to my clients. And I'm sure in every field there is something like that, where you have to find, you have to be aware and you have to be educated and you have to pivot and make sure that you are able to keep up to date with whatever's happening in your field. I think that's why finance was not the career for me, because finance has like a set rules and like every day is the same, and I found that very boring. I wanted something that was more challenging, more exciting. And I think marketing for me has been a good fit, because it allows me to be really creative, and then I can do new things. I can experiment within my kind of, built framework. That, okay, I have this client and I can say, okay, let this month for this campaign, let's try this. And the good clients who are receptive to my kind of, strategy and feedback, they'll actually want to do it. So it's a fun way. It's a fun way to work. And I really, I'm somebody, I want to find joy in my work. So I think I'm very privileged and lucky that I have been able to do that. I've been able to find joy in the work.
No, but you've worked really hard for it.
I worked hard for it as well, and now I've come to that point where I'm able to find joy. And of course, there are bad days, and there are also difficult clients. And I think we were having this conversation earlier as well. Influencer marketing has evolved so much, but in some ways it hasn't evolved in Pakistan. We're still stuck having the same conversations. Okay, what is the difference between influencers and ads? What is the difference between influencer content and ad content? They're not like talent. You can't tell them what to wear and how to sit and what script to read. You have to give them some creative liberty. So in some ways, I'm still stuck having those conversations with some clients where they still don't understand the very basics of influencer marketing. But it's like you win some, you lose some. So with some clients, you're like, okay, fine, let me do the strategy. With some, you're like, okay, fine, you want to decide it. And I realized that in some cases, influencer marketing can work as like just content creation. So you hiring influencer, you telling them what to do, they're making content for you. It does look like an ad, but that's what the client wants. And that's what they want to put out there. Fine, good on them. I don't think that's influencer marketing then. That's more like content creation for a brand. And that's a difference that some brands don't even realize that they're making, but they're making it. In their mind, they just want content that's just like an ad, and they just want influencers to do it. It's still, I think, a good strategy in some ways because it's more cost effective. You don't have to hire a videographer, makeup artist, location, apne influencer ko pakda diya. They're doing end-to-end shooting, everything for you. But it's not influencer marketing.
Yeah, it's not influencer marketing. And then if you sort of compare that content coming out of that influencer compared to the other kind of content that they're creating, there's going to be a lot of difference in how people engage and respond to that. So if brands are expecting कि अच्छा अगर वो एक स्क्रिप्ट पकड़ा के और एक बहुत एड लाइक वो पूरा एस्पेक्ट कंट्रोल करके डालेंगे, they're not going to get the same result.
They're not going to get the
then
same
they
result.
have to be on board with that, because you know, whenever a brand asks me to put up content like that, I always have that, you know, for me generally that's easier.
Agreed.
Right? So it's easier for me because they define everything. I do it, I put it up, it takes a lot less work from me. But it's just that it's something that I don't want to put out for my audience, right? It's just like, like I'm wasting their time. Like, what am I showing them, right? But even if the brand doesn't agree and this is what they want, then I feel like it's our responsibility to tell them, and I do, okay, listen, then I'm letting you know that it's not going to get the same response that my other videos get, right? And I think brands need to know this.
I feel like engagement isn't even a key priority for all brands.
They're not. Yeah.
For some brands, it really is just they want content up and they want content that sticks to certain guidelines, and that's it.
Yeah.
Engagement is so you know, like one of the first steps that we do when we're working with a client is that we try to identify their objectives. And some clients have that clarity that, okay, fine, for us an objective with this campaign is conversions, or it is awareness, or it is conversation, or we want to build this association for our product. And some brands don't even know what their objectives are. Sometimes they're just like, you know, we just want content.
We just want content, yeah.
And that has become an increasing need because, you know, social media requires you to post every day. And brands can't make content so quickly. So they actually do need more content going out there. And I think, you know, I feel like UGC content has become so important, and I feel Pakistan still needs to catch on. We're not there yet, and I'm trying now these days. The conversations that I'm trying to have with my clients is that, you know, work with micro content creators and get UGC content, because you need more content, and the content that you can make, it won't connect as well with your customers as UGC content does. So hire micro content creators, they can do a good job, it's cost effective, and I feel that's something that we need to tap into more in Pakistan, rather than you hire a big influencer and you're telling them to make an ad for you. Get a smaller content creator to do something more engaging.
And especially and again, it depends on your objective, right? Especially if you're looking for sales and conversion, then UGC and micro influencers might get you that. But you know, sometimes you can, you know, put stuff out there for like with the help of a big influencer, which will help you create awareness with a larger number of people, but might not necessarily get you
conversions.
The conversions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Even the content style, like, so for awareness, definitely macro influencers work, and you know, even the type of content that you do. So just saying I want a reel is not the type of content. Reel has so many formats now. There's voiceover, there's ASMR, there's you know, transition videos. So when we're working with clients, we try to identify what kind of reel, what kind of content you want, what is going to be the format, what is trending in your particular industry, will that trend fit into, and you know, sometimes there are trends that don't particularly fit for a brand, but we try to make them fit just to kind of get that brand, that traction. And it is at times even difficult to explain that to a client. You know, for example, if I'm showing them that tube girl trend is going around the world, and you know, this is how people are making content, they'll be like, oh, but usme hamara product nazar nahi aayega. And I'm like, no, but people can change it to bring it in organically, give them that liberty to do it. So sometimes it's very difficult to even explain to, and I feel like over the years working in this industry is that because a lot of the times brand side pe nobody actually understands influencer marketing or the digital space, because digital space evolves so quickly that you actually constantly need to be on it yourself to see what's happening. And I feel like TikTok mein na ye bahut masla hai. Because TikTok, unfortunately, in Pakistan has been branded as, I don't know, like a cringe platform for some reason. Although TikTok is so great with, like, if you look at global content on TikTok, there is amazing content. Like, I would say there's better content on TikTok as compared to Instagram. But unfortunately, Pakistan mein, we still haven't hopped onto it fully, embraced it fully as yet, because we're just stuck on the fact that TikTok pe people dance and make, and that's not it. That's not the case. TikTok has so many different formats, and that's one format, yes, that people do trends and they dance and whatever ek trend aata hai, people dance and then that trend goes away. But there's so many other, and if I look at global content, there's people who are talking about activities, they're talking about information. I think voiceover is a big thing there, talking videos are a big thing there, people are, and that hasn't completely translated into the Pakistani market
not
yet.
No.
And I hope it does, because I think TikTok gives you organic reach, which other platforms don't. And organic reach is, of course, really important. And Instagram, unfortunately, I think they've completely killed their organic reach, which has made marketing on Instagram a little tricky. And now your number of followers don't matter as much as to get reach, It's more about how relatable your content is, how much people share it, how much people save it. That's why we try to bring comedy into a lot of content, because comedy is something that people, relate.
It's most shareable and relatable, and
dance kar lo, it's more relatable. So, like value content, I actually have seen content that's informative, like that actually giving information or giving education on TikTok.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is like, I know it sounds surprising for someone who's not in the industry. TikTok पे information
No,
होती है.
there's a lot. Like when you, मुझे भी सब कुछ होता है. I heard on TikTok, or I learned from TikTok. My only thing with this is that there's a lot of information being put out on TikTok, and even on Instagram Reels. अगर आप देखो तो बाहर people are using it like that. It's just that I feel like although there's a lot of learning there, the value is there, it's just it lacks a lot of context, because it's all done like it's too fast, so the information is very incomplete also.
I think it depends, because now TikTok does have longer form, like slightly longer format than before. So there's that option, but at the same time I do think there is that shift in Pakistani content as well, where I have been, a lot of people are making reels with information, and they're making all there's different formats of reels now being made. There's different formats, so I'm hoping that same thing translates into TikTok, because TikTok has great reach, and I think more and more, I know Gen Z is already using it. So whenever I'm having conversations with Gen Z creators, they prefer to use TikTok. So I know Gen Z is already using it, and the future is that a lot of people will be shifting towards TikTok, but right now there's this perception in our mind that platform, isn't as effective or isn't as good as Instagram. And I think in Pakistan right now, most of influencer marketing is being done on Instagram.
Hadia, I think it's also influencer marketing will shift to TikTok when people who have more buying power start to use TikTok.
Yeah, that's the issue at the moment.
It's essentially counterproductive for any brand to invest in TikTok when they know the people who are using it don't have buying power. So if it's Gen Z, they're not that grown up yet. Right? True. They're not buying an AC right now. Some of them are maybe,
No, you're right. I think the user base is very young there.
It's immature, it's young, right? So it's either people who don't have a lot of money, so there may be a class difference, and then there is an age thing. So even if it's not a class difference, the audience is a bit immature in that sense. But I know for sure that it's gonna catch up.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you will see. So that evolution, it has to come from the audience side, and then the brands will take that step.
That's true.
If the target audience is sitting there on that platform, they will go for that platform. They will go for the platform.
It's going to happen. It's going to take a bit of a while, but I hope that it happens quickly because, like I said, there's a lot of potential on that platform that we are kind of missing out on at the moment. And yes, Instagram Reels are really effective as well, and they do perform well, but I feel like the reach with Instagram is it's tricky. Sometimes, sometimes you'll get really good reach and sometimes you won't. And so again, we try to give brand strategies and suggestions in which the content that we're putting out there gets reach. But
no, I personally feel I agree with you. I feel like Instagram as a creator, that's why I said I feel like that platform isn't serving anyone anymore because Instagram has become a very unreliable platform for any and everyone, right? So a lot of there's no sense of community left there anymore anyway. So when influencers, they build a community, they build people who engage with them, who talk to them. But with Reels, you're kind of losing that because you're losing originality, you're losing personal touch, because when you are trying to just do trends and trying to do what everybody's doing in order to gain reach, then you're losing connection with people.
That's true.
Because if you're just doing what everybody is doing, right? But when you put effort into that connection, then you don't get as much reach or as much virality, right? So it's completely opposite. And another thing is that because of the Reels tab on Instagram, for when you talk about creators and influencers, okay, so maybe their work might get a lot of views and might get a lot of likes, and one of their videos might go up on the Reel tab. It's not helping them build that community, because people, even if people are finding them on the Reel tab, they're not going out there to go
Follow
on the
them.
profile and follow them.
Yeah, I agree.
So the community building aspect, which I feel like influencers really rely on, right? Which is their influence lies. If you don't have a community, you don't have influence.
That's true.
Right? I feel like brands cannot expect conversions if there is no influence. You can expect awareness. Sure, if your video goes viral and goes on the Reel tab and so many people have seen it, you know,
awareness that KPI, that will get the reach.
But you are losing credibility, you are losing trust, you are not being able to build that community, because that aspect is kind of being washed away slowly.
No, I agree with you. In the past, I think if you got good reach, that did convert into getting more followers or increasing your community. Or now it's like, okay, a reel goes viral, you might not even get follows out of it, because people, you see that as an entertainment, but they're not actually influenced enough to want to connect with you as an influencer.
So there's a lack of influence, and and because there's a lack of influence, the whole idea, influencer marketing की backbone ही एक influencer का influence है, उसकी trust है, उसकी credibility है, right? So if the platform is not adding to that, then eventually the influencer marketing is not going to serve brands.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like it's become more of putting content out, and there are some creators who have that influence because they have that really strong connect with their audience. And so again, if conversions, for example, is a KPI, then we say you work with those kind of people. If you want just content, then maybe we'll pitch somebody else to the brand. Yeah. So it does come down to then a brand knowing what exactly they're trying to achieve. Because like you said, I think Instagram now has two different sides to it. One is the influencer marketing and the influencer side to it, and the other is just content.
Yeah, just entertainment content.
Yes. So there's like a lot of content going up every day, and not a lot of it is influencing. Some of it is just purely awareness or entertainment.
Yeah, just what people are switching on to watch.
Yes, to like just scroll through. And sometimes that scrolling itself can be very mindless. But people do just come on sometimes purely for entertainment, not to actually connect. And in the past, it was about connecting. It was more about connecting. Now it's more about you come on, because you know there's that whole thing, people share reels. So you're just mindlessly sending, found this reel relatable, I'll send it to my sister. Found this relatable, I'll send it to a friend. That's how a lot of users use social media. They're just like, okay, fine, let's go and get entertained, and that's it. But influence, they're not out there for influence. And I think that makes an influencer's job a lot tougher as well. It makes our job a lot tougher as well, because we have to make sure, one influencer could be really impactful for one brand for a certain brief, and then not as impactful if given a completely different brief, even for the same brand.
For sure, because every influencer doesn't have influence in every area, right?
In every area, and content has different content resonates with different people. You have to play into an influencer's strength. So for example, if a client says to me, can you get this person to do a voiceover, and they've never done a voiceover before ever, I'm like, no, I'm not going to ask them that, because their audience isn't used to it, and it's going to seem fake,
inauthentic and fake, and it's not going to do anything.
The audience isn't going to connect to that voiceover. It's going to be something that they're doing for you, but not for their audiences. So let them do it in a way that their audience can connect to. But again, if a client is like, can we get a voiceover, because for them it's just like, okay, we need the awareness and your key points really matter, and that's the main objective, then I'll be like, okay, fine. You're not trying to make a connection with, you're not giving them a promo code.
That's not what you want, to ठीक है.
So that understanding nahi hai. And over the years, influencer marketing and content, it has become so complex with all these changes on Instagram. And our understanding of influencer marketing is still where it was all those years ago, where we still don't understand the difference between influencer content and ad content. So up to all be complicated. There's more layers to it now. So I feel like it's people aren't leveraging the platform in the right ways. Like brands aren't leveraging it in the right ways. And there's because at the end of the day, working with content creators, working with influencers is really impactful for brands, both in terms of results and in terms of cost, as compared to them doing it themselves.
For sure, yeah.
But you need to leverage it in the right ways for you to get that. And one of the reasons why I'm saying this is because sometimes brands don't even look at the results. You know, like a lot of the bigger brands, they're putting out so much content, they're just like lag rag content. They're not actually following reach and engagement and what were the results. Some brands do, but not all. So if you're not following that, then that just means, you know, at the end of the day, you just wanted content up.
Yeah.
Which again, fine, if that is really your objective, that you need content, you need to be active, top of mind, awareness. But there are so many other impactful ways in which content creators and influencers can be worked with, you know. I think affiliate marketing being one of them, Joke, is still not...
We don't see it. And I feel like it's so important. Like, why haven't brands caught up on that yet, right? And even influencers, I feel like, you know... I just feel like this needs to be taken more seriously.
It does. I think influencers just want like a upfront payment and that's it, they're done with it and they move on to the next project. And I think brands at the moment haven't really figured out a model in which they can build long-term relationships with content creators. So they want to work with different people all the time. And I feel like, again, the conversations that I'm having with clients or I'm trying to have are that you need to have a community of influencers who represent you and you have long-term relationships with them. Because you endorsing one brand once isn't as impactful as you talking about that brand 4 to 5 times. Over again, because that's when people know, oh, she actually does use the brand or has some association with it. And that takes time. So sometimes people don't want to even invest that time. They're like, okay, we just want to get done with this one campaign and then move on to the next thing. So I think longer term relationships with influencers is probably the way forward. Again, because the way social media is evolving, there's so much content going up every day. That if you want to actually have impact in your campaigns, you do need to find new ways or creative ways to engage your consumer. And one of those is that you have somebody who is actually representing a brand over a period of time and who actually understands your brand really well then. Because like, you know, the way I understand my clients, because I've been working with them for a number of years, is how an influencer would be able to then understand a client or a brand because they work with them over a period of time and they develop that relationship. And, you know, having said that, I also must raise that sometimes I feel influencers also take on too much work. And one day they're endorsing one brand and the other day and I'm not saying everyone does that, no. But some people do that, and I think it damages their own credibility. Damages their own credibility, but it also damages the industry. And, you know, one bad experience that a client has with one influencer, it does reflect on the entire industry, unfortunately, because it's still a new industry. It's a new industry for, you know, both the content creators and for the brand. So a lot of brands haven't been doing this for so many years. They're still new to it. And same with content creators. There's a lot of, you know, every single day we have new people coming into the space making content. So once you damage the credibility of the industry, you know, it's a disservice to everybody.
Yes.
And same comes with when people don't follow their commitments, they don't follow timelines. I mean, it's okay if there's a delay as well. We're all human. But I've had experiences where people just completely ghost you. So you're following up, I'm like, where's your work? No reply, no response. I've had people lose products and ghost me. Like, you know, these things really matter. I think professionalism makes such a big difference.
Do you think generally, like, how is the professionalism when it comes to the influencer side?
So I have worked
with... Or how has it sort of... Has it gotten better over time or...
No, I don't think... I feel like in the past it was better because people really respected their work. It was like, yes, it was a new field, but people knew that they really had to earn work for, you know, like they had to earn the work. They had to really put themselves, they had to show brands the value behind it. Now brands already know the value behind it. So I feel new content creators don't feel like they have to earn it. It's like there's a bit more entitlement, you know, influencer marketing to karni hi hai brands ne, so work is going to come my way, and then the accountability goes down, and then you're not following deadlines, you're not as bothered. And I'm not saying everyone does that, of course. I work with some really, really brilliant content creators who, like, I just know, like when a brand says, can you recommend somebody who you know is going to give us this on time, I can think of people and be like, yes, I know this person. If she or he is saying that it's deadline, but they'll do it, and I can trust them. And you know, it's also okay, like I said, it's okay if there's a delay, but at least communicate.
It is a way to do things.
So communication is such an issue, I feel, in not just with influencers, but with overall, I think Pakistan ki, like in professional world, you need to be able to communicate respectfully, and you need to be able to communicate effectively. If there's a delay, let the person know, okay, you know, I can't deliver this content on time because of whatever reason. And then with me, it's always like, okay, fine, then what's the solution, right? Let's come to the solution. Because most of the time, solution hoti hai, but aapne discuss nahi kiya hota, so you don't know what to do, right? So I think one thing is that people don't, like deadlines ka to bahut bad scene ho gaya hai, like people don't deliver their work on time, and it does become an issue because I think a lot of content creators sometimes don't understand that brands have campaigns and they run from certain time periods. If you've missed it, then I can't do much if you're sending in content very late, for example. That's one issue. And the other issue I would is communication, like I said, you know, people don't communicate. So even like, I mean, again, some content creators are very professional. So when they're shooting, they'll let you know we're shooting. If they have any questions, they'll ask, which is great. It's always good to ask questions and get clarity. Yeah, if they want to know more about the brand or the product, they'll be like, we want to test it out first. That's great. Do that, you know, educate yourself. Don't just take it as a one-off thing. Actually get involved. And that's really refreshing to see as well. But then there's some people who just like, not bothered. And you know, on the flip side, I do understand content creators also face a lot of unprofessional behavior. One of them being payments. I know is a big issue, and I've always tried on my behalf.
No, they really get paid really late.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I think I've always tried to get payments through on time whenever I'm working with a brand. I know कि brand side पे भी delay आते हैं. Also because I've worked at a corporate job, so I understand that finance is, like different finance teams have different processes and different ways of doing it.
Yeah, but you know, I've even had experiences में 1.5 साल बाद मुझे मेरी payments
wow,
मिली. 7 months बाद मुझे मेरी payments मिली.
Oh wow, that is horrible.
Yeah,
that is I think that is the most unfair thing that happens to content creators is that their payment timelines are not respected at all, and that should change. That needs to change, especially in the current economy where, you know, there's so much fluctuation in
and
the value.
And inflation, right? By the time there's been so many times that by the time I've gotten my money,
it's worthless.
The worth has changed so much, and you know, my rates have changed, and it's just like,
it's
oh
unfair.
my god.
I agree. I think that is the biggest like thing that happens to, and the other is when brands aren't clear with what they want, and then they're like, oh, can you make that change? Can you go back? Can you do this? That is wrong.
Yeah, I think what brands do is at first they give a very clear brief, and when you follow that brief, even when you follow that brief,
if it doesn't work out, they don't like it. They're like,
and they don't like
that
it,
happens.
then they make you change things, and you're just like, listen, I did everything you asked for in the brief. Yeah.
This is why we try to get objectives from the brand in the beginning, so that we can guide them. You might think you need this, but you're not going to like it when it happens. So that's why the first step of objective setting matters so much when you're making a campaign. But on the flip side, what I've seen now is, when I started in this industry, so YouTube was a big thing, and YouTube में content creators would have an upfront agreement that if you want changes, we'll allow 3 changes and then no more changes after that.
हाँ, हम लोग का भी ये था कि हाँ, हम भी ये करते हैं.
Now people are like, we are not going to change anything.
That's not fair.
Yes, they're like, feedback तो है ही नहीं. And I'm not talking about big, I'm talking about a lot of smaller content creators as well. And I'm like, feedback is part of the process, right? You can't ignore feedback. You can't be like, I'm not open to feedback at all. That's just a very odd way of working. Like in any, like if I'm pitching to a client, they'll come back to me with feedback. Then I'll refine the proposal and then we'll lock it, right? So if you're working with anybody, you need to be open to feedback. It's also like an unhealthy way to work. Na? Ki aapne kaha, I don't think feedback matters like that. So people fight. Again, I'm like, communication matters, right? You can say the same thing to me in a polite way, and we can have a polite conversation, or, you know, like there are more healthier ways to go about it. So if there's a disagreement and you're like, because obviously anybody who's worked on something, they put their effort and time into it, and they have their own perspective, and I'm always open to listening to people's perspective or opinion. But if you're not open for a conversation, you're like outright no feedback, like I've done
changes,
this, I've done this is my work, take it or leave it. People are literally like that. And then they get really rude as well. So I think that is wrong, because then again, that's the entitlement where you're like, I'm getting work, whatever. Like, I'm not going to earn it. I'm not going to prove myself.
Why do you think this is now? Because I feel like this is not how it used to be in the start.
I don't think it was how it was. Yeah, I think it's a very new thing. I think because a lot of people are entering the industry at a young age as well. And for them...
I mean, we entered at a young age, Hadia.
That's true.
Like, it's not that they're entering at a young age. I also feel they just don't have respect for the industry generally.
Yeah.
In the same way, because they didn't pave that way.
They didn't pave.
It's much easier now to
Yes,
enter
it is.
The everything is out there for you, right? You don't have to build or put in that work to put yourself
you don't
out
have
on
to
the map.
prove to brands that they need to spend money on influencer marketing. Brands already have the budgets. I think in the past you really had to put up a case that this is why you should even be doing influencer marketing. Like that's when I started off my agency.
No, but it wasn't just about proving, Hadia. That's what I'm saying, that because we were working so hard, we had respect for our industry, for ourselves. Like it wasn't just about proving to them. It was
also for yourself.
It was that you wanted to work professionally, you wanted to work with dignity, you wanted to build those good relationships.
And I think there was more accountability back in the day, right? Now accountability has really gone down. So if you are hiring people for a particular, they might do it, they might not do it, they might be, although they're not even going to get paid unless they actually deliver the work, right? So they're actually losing out. But they're not as bothered.
Because
the accountability is
the
low.
next,
they're like, okay, fine, we'll pick up the next project that comes our way. It's okay. And I guess maybe more work is out there.
But I think also, Hadia, another thing that I feel is because, like, when we started this, like a lot of the OG influencers or content creators that did this, they saw and realized this as something that not everyone was a creator, right? Not everyone was an influencer. So it was a serious thing. They took it as a career. So agar aap naye entrants ko dekho bhi na, whether you are a creator or influencer, it's everybody has an open public profile.
Yes, that's true.
Whether you're taking it seriously as a career or not.
That's true.
आपके main dreams और goals कुछ और हैं. जिन लोगों ने ये किया, उनका ये dream था. This was their goal. So they took it seriously as a profession. But if you're just doing it because
as
you
a side thing or just to be, then you don't take it as seriously. My only kind of concern with that still is that if you take on a project and you commit to it, then you should give your account, like you should be accountable and you should give it your, you should be as professional as possible. And if you can't, then just don't take the work. Just refuse. And even now I have a lot of content creators who I work with regularly, and if they're busy, they'll just tell me that, oh, you know what, I have this coming up, I can't fit it into my schedule. And I really respect that. I respect people who know when to say no to a project because they know they can't deliver. I find it very troublesome when someone takes work and then they're like, oh, but now we have this personal thing and that.
That's surprising for me.
Is
tarah bhi ho raha hai ki they're taking it up and then they're...
People take up work and then they don't deliver that work. And obviously because there are certain KPIs that we have to meet as an agency, that we have certain number of content or reach or objectives to meet, and if someone drops out, it is hard to replace. The whole process, I don't think I've even had people say to me, I can't do it, just take my friend. No.
What?
It's not as, you're not as replaceable. There's a whole process. We have to get approval from brands, then we have to get the product approved, and we have to get it sent. There's a whole budget built. I think people don't understand how businesses work maybe, and they're just like, oh, I can recommend my friend, she can do it. No, that's not.
Like the influencer got it. So that's what I'm saying, right? Ki they're taking it casually. They don't understand the chain or like how it goes. So jo uska kaam hai na,
and that's why
beyond the fact that you're creating content, there's an industry where there's a brand जिसका एक brand manager है, फिर उसके नीचे एक बंदा है, फिर एक agency है, agency के अंदर लोग हैं,
and this is why
pitch हो रहा होता है, influencers pitch हो रहे होते हैं, campaign pitch हो रही होती है, एक decision होता है, एक brief बनती है, वो आपके पास पहुंचती है, and there's a whole thing.
There's a whole process.
इस बात की understanding नहीं है.
And that's why I said you need to work a job, because you really need to understand how things work in businesses. It's not as easy as, oh, let's pass it on to the next person. So I think, and this has happened more, I would say, in recent years, when so many people have come into this space, and some people aren't as serious, like you said. Some people don't take it as seriously. They're like, fine, we'll do it if you want to. If you don't want to do the project, we'll just let it go. And it damages the industry. It damages the credibility of the industry. It damages, like, honestly speaking, my clients understand as well that, it is, if I tell them someone has backed out, but it just, it reduces the value of the entire relationship a brand has with the content creator if they don't see them as a reliable party. And what I'm trying to say, when I was saying that we need long-term relationships, it damages that potential as well, because then they don't really see them as a reliable partnership, because they're like, oh, these people are so flaky that they're known to be flaky, so why should we enter into a long-term? and sometimes, I mean, I know some clients who do have long-term contracts with content creators, and they say that to me sometimes. They're like, they're so flaky that we don't even know if it's worth it.
Yeah.
So it's just sad because so many people are putting in such great and hard work, and there's such great content creators out there, and they add really good value, I think, not just for brands, but overall, like, like
for the audience even.
For audience as well. There's so many people that I follow for inspiration or for community, because the world has become digital. I was telling you earlier as well, a lot of my friends have moved out. So our interactions are so digital now. And Instagram does provide us with a very valuable platform in which we can engage with others, connect with others. And content creators, they do provide a really big value in that space, where if you feel lost or if you want inspiration, you can look at somebody who's doing something, and there's value in that. Like I like to work out. I follow a lot of people who work out, and if some days I feel low on motivation, I'm not making this up. If I open my Instagram and somebody is working out, I'll be like, oh my god, I need to go to, like, it inspires me. So a lot of people do use that platform like that. They're very conscious about who they're following because they're looking for that inspiration or that connection. So when you don't take what you're doing seriously, or when you are so flaky with your work, you're damaging that entire network that's been built around
the industry, the network.
And especially in a country where everything is still fairly new. And yes, people understand the value behind influencer marketing, but they don't. There's a lot of mistrust, I would say, between brands and it goes both ways, right? Brands can also be unprofessional. There have been times where I have, so there's been a campaign जिसमें आपको पूरी brief मिली, आपने पूरी video बनाई, you went back and forth, you made changes thrice, right? And then there's still a lot of, जैसा मेरे साथ ये होता है कि यार, for me, while this industry as a is my career and everything, and brands are very important for me and everything, but my main product or my main concern is always my audience, right? Like, I care about them the most, right? If I have to work with the brand and it's in some way or the other, it is something that I don't want my audience to watch or see, or so you will reject that.
I will reject it,
and
right?
That's also a very important point, because a lot of influencers do reject work that doesn't, and I think people don't realize that.
Oh, I reject it all the time.
I know you do. I know a lot of people that I've reached out to, and they're like, if you're not going to be using this, not because the service is bad, but just because it doesn't appeal to them, for example. So a lot of people will then turn down that work. But I think audiences ko lagta hai ki you take every project that comes your way. Every influencer takes every project.
But the audience, like, people are generally so confused as well, because I find it, I find some things very unfair when it comes to consumers of influencer content, right? So, they'll say कि, oh, influencers charge so much money, right? There's that thing कि इतने ज़्यादा पैसे लेते हैं ये लोग, और हमारी बैग्स पे ले रहे हैं कि हमें ads दिखा रहे हैं वो. पहली बात तो ये है कि लोगों को शुक्र करना चाहिए कि they don't have to subscribe to our channels and pay to watch us, right? We're not taking that money from you, but we have to sustain ourselves, so we're taking money from someone else and putting a few things out there. Secondly, they say कि यार इतने पैसे नहीं charge करें. So it's very simple. Like, the reason that for example, I would charge the way I charge, which I thought, I charge a lot, but someone told me you're undercharging, so I was very confused. But anyway, so for me, like, I always try to keep my rate higher from what is generally happening. And the reason for that is that it puts me in a position where I don't, because if I have to make a certain amount of money in a month, because this is literally my livelihood, my income, I'm going to have to take up every Tom, Dick and Harry campaign, right? Take lots and lots of campaigns
to make that
make that money.
Okay.
Right? And that is not fair to my audience, because then I'm going to be showing them all kinds of trash. So my audience, so generally audience needs to understand that when an influencer takes more money,
they can be more selective about their work.
They're selective because then they get to do 1 or 2 campaigns, and that's all you have to see for a whole month. For them to then focus on their organic content.
So my perspective, I don't understand why people are so offended by people taking work for
and
a service that they're offering.
For a service that they're offering, and actually Pakistani influencers charge very less
compared to the global market.
Oh my God, we're very underpaid.
You guys are underpaid. And so a few thoughts that I have on this. Firstly, I hate when someone says FOC kaam karna. There is no such thing as free of cost work.
Oh my God.
I
Talk
don't
about this once
ever
you're done with
pitch
your point.
any service free of cost. I never commit to any client that I'm going to get you an influencer free of cost. I do not believe in that at all. It is unfair to the influencer. It is a disservice to the entire process. It is unprofessional. I have so many thoughts on that. There is a barter, I understand. Sometimes a brand has a service or a product that the influencer might need, and in exchange for that, that works. But आप उनको 2000 का product दे के कहो कि हमारे लिए stories, posts, that is wrong. That is very, very wrong. That understanding is still not there in Pakistan. For some reason, people think कि FOC देना is a good thing. So if an agency brings you FOC work, that's a good thing. I also try to tell people that FOC में people won't be able to do justice to their work. If they're not getting compensated for it, right? How can they do justice to it? They can't put in the time and the effort.
And especially, Hadia, when there's a supply and demand, right? So for example, if I have 4 campaigns in line, one of them says कि आप मेरे लिए FOC करते please कर दें, right? Cause है या ये है या फलाना है. मतलब अगर if my demand is so much that I have like 4 or 5 campaigns lined up and one of them is FOC, how will I put in the equal amount of effort? Because I am human. I can only do so much, and if somebody is paying me, then I need to do more justice to them because they're literally spending their money on me.
Absolutely. So एक तो ये भी है, and secondly, again, sometimes the brand might be offering you a barter or something that you might find valuable, and in that case it works because then you are also getting something of value and you want to build that relationship. Like for example, one practice in Pakistan that I've always been opposed to was PR gifting, because I felt that PR gifting doesn't add value. You getting 100 products every day is not going to add any value on your stories. But for certain brands it works because people actually want to try their products, for example. So great, then aap PR gifting kar lo. So you have to be smart about what mix of paid content, gifting, barter, whatever you want to do, but don't think of FOC as a win. It's not a win. It's not a good way to work. It is unprofessional. Secondly, I don't understand why people are so offended by rates. मतलब I've had people say to me at times कि oh my god, इतना charge कर रहे हैं तो मैं ये काम कर ले, तो आप कर लो.
And then you'll know how easy it is.
What is stopping you? So when it comes to YouTube, for example, I've heard this so much because obviously YouTubers charge higher.
Yeah, they charge a lot.
And I remember this one time I was pitching for a campaign and they were like, oh my god, they're charging so much, why don't I? And I was like, why don't you do it? I actually said it. I'm like, why don't you do it? You know, it's so difficult to shoot, edit, put it out there, then also put yourself out there, welcome people into your life, have them hate on you as well. It's not just as simple as taking a picture and posting it, is what people make it out to be.
And the money that essentially content creators take, it's not for that one campaign. So it's for all the people they have on board that are watching.
It's for the value.
Eyeballs and the value.
It is the value that you're putting out there.
And वो जो हार्ड वर्क उन्होंने मतलब आप किसी इन्फ्लुएंसर के साथ इसलिए काम करते हो क्योंकि उसके पास इतने ज़्यादा लोग देख रहे हैं, राइट? उसने हार्ड वर्क उन लोगों को बिल्ड करने में डाला है ओवर सो लॉन्ग.
I think people don't understand that.
So it's the money is not for the picture they're going to take. The money is for all the people that are going to be watching.
And the years they've spent in building that platform, that connection,
that influence.
And yeah, it's a very, very difficult job. I don't know why people think it's... Asha, there is this huge... And I think this is why people find the rates to be so high. Because they think it's an easy job. And it's not an easy job. I know it's not an easy job because I work with content creators and I work closely with them and I follow the whole journey and the process. But I'm surprised that even as an audience, you know, how it's... These are people that are putting their entire life in front of you, you know. It's so difficult to be vulnerable in front of even your close community than to put it up in front of thousands of people who you don't personally know. It's very difficult. To put out content consistently is very difficult. To shoot content, to edit it, to refine it, there's so many things that go into being a content creator, and for some reason people think it's an easy job, and that shocks me. And you know, I used to work in HR. That's the same misconception people have of HR in companies. They think HR is a very easy profession. And I think it's so wrong to dub any profession or any career as easy. No. Nothing is easy. Anything that you want, coming back to what I said earlier, anything that you want to do in life, you have to put in the hard work. If a certain influencer is now charging you hundreds and thousands for a video, it's because they put in the hard work.
No, and आप यही देख लो कि it's not just that video, right? So so if after 5 videos that they've made organically for no money at all,
they get one organic,
and then they're putting that one and they're charging a lot for it. तो audience का क्या जा रहा है? Why are they complaining? Because that influencer or creator is creating so much content absolutely free. Like if you look at my podcast, so like I've recently started getting a lot of these messages. एक लड़की तो मुझे काफ़ी अर्से से ये कह रही है कि I'm really scared कि you're gonna close the podcast because बहुत slowly जो है subscribers मिल रहे हैं बहुत slowly, and I love it and I don't know कि when you're gonna start making money for it, because I barely have any sponsored stuff happening here. I do have a couple of episodes but बहुत कम. So, like, you will give up, right? Because not enough people are watching. And I was like, see, that's the thing. And when, inshallah, one day this grows and I start putting, and मैं कितना charge करना शुरू हो जाऊँ maybe for it, right? It's years and years of doing it consistently without taking any money. मेरे पास तो ये भी होता है कि even you know this कि मेरे पास कोई आता है तो मैं कहती हूँ no, I'm not gonna charge right now.
Yeah.
Right? You asked me for one of your clients and I was like, it's okay, I'm not gonna charge.
Yeah.
I'm building something and it's gonna take me years where I can put myself in that position where I can say, listen, I'm going to charge this much for a podcast. But उस time पे किसी को ये नहीं नजर आएगा कि मैंने कितने years I took no money for it.
Yeah, I know, and it really surprises me. So whenever someone says to me that, oh my God, why are they charging so much? And you know, my thing is, if you find someone's rates high, don't work with them or don't engage with them. Yeah,
get someone you can afford just because you
put some. And you know what you said about pricing? This is so true because every influencer has their own strategy. So what sometimes brands, and I think maybe, I don't know if users also think like this, वो compare भी करते हैं कि वो तो इतना charge. That's not how, like, there is no set price, right? Sometimes people think that an influencer's charges are pegged to their number of followers. That's not true. So different people, like, you might be charging a premium because you want less work. Another influencer who might have a really large following might be charging less because right now they need to pick up more work, right? So rates fluctuate, rates vary. Everyone has their own pricing strategy as well. I think उसकी भी understanding नहीं है market में कि there is no one fixed price, and also there's not an understanding that different scope of work has different charges.
Right. So the kind of work that you're doing. Yeah.
So a reel has different formats, different types. You want a particular kind of reel, someone might charge more for it if more editing or more time is required in it. If you want to do, for example, fashion influencers, right? If I'm asking them to do 2 outfits, they'll charge a different amount. If we're saying do 4 outfits, they'll charge a higher amount. And I've actually had sometimes, I don't know if I should be saying, brands say कि इसमें क्या है, they just have to change clothes. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's more work, it's more time.
It's actually a lot of work, yeah.
I don't know. Fashion, I think, gets the most hate. कि इसमें क्या है?
No, but it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Styling something, putting something together, shooting for it. It is a lot of effort. And I think now, because everybody wants to do reels are a lot of effort. Editing is a lot of effort. You really, I think everyone should pick up their phone at some point and shoot a video and realize how much work goes into it.
How much work goes in. यार एक simple TikTok बनाना बहुत मुश्किल काम है.
It is.
Let alone put all this effort and edit and change your clothes and set locations and get your photographers.
And some people do amazing videos where they're doing these amazing transitions, and those are really difficult to shoot.
Yeah, and और अब तो ये भी ना कि they're putting in that money and effort as well. Fuel cost है, वो hire करते हैं किसी को, photographer,
videography करवा रहे हैं. They're doing so many things that if you were going to, like, location cost. So, but you know, I'm really proud of content creators now who have the awareness to know what they should be charging and who are charging it and who know that they should be charging a separate amount for ads and a separate amount for static, and because sometimes people would just give extra content भी ना शुरू में बेचारे because of awareness नहीं थी, so they'll be like, if you hired somebody for one thing, they'll also do some extra things as well. Sometimes people still do that, like behind the scenes, and because they enjoy working with the brand, which is again goodwill, it's relationship building, nothing wrong with it. But I think a lot of people now have awareness that they should be charging more for more work, and that is good. It's a good thing. I don't know why exploiting others is seen as a win. कि मैं अगर कुछ free में निकलवा लूँगी या कर लूँगी तो वो it's not a good thing.
Recently I got someone who reached out to me for a couple of things, bunch of things. कि एक podcast थी और कुछ जो है मेरे हैप्पी चर्प के अकाउंट पे था और उसमें था कि अगर आप अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पे भी कर दें दैट वुड बी ग्रेट, राइट? एंड इट वाज ऑल लाइक FOC because there's a cause, right? अच्छा, अब जो कॉज है ना वो एक्चुअली बेसिकली इट्स अ प्रोग्राम जिसमें इट्स फॉर वुमेन, इट्स अ प्रोग्राम फॉर वुमेन, बट वुमेन हु आर who take up that program, they have to pay for it.
So they are earning from it.
So if you are earning from that program, you know, where they're helping women in whatever, they're recruiting those women and giving them workshops or whatever they're doing, then why should I, like, if you are taking the money, then why should I be doing this FOC? Right? At first I thought, okay, your program is FOC as well. You're doing this for the women as well for free.
Then you don't have budgets because obviously you're not making money out of it.
So then I'm like, and I do a lot of things FOC as well. If it's something that, you know, I feel strongly about as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of influencers do social causes campaign, like work FOC because they resonate with the cause or something.
With the cause as well. But या तो होता ना कि एक चीज होती है, there was a lot of stuff, all of FOC, and for something that you are saying do it free for the cause, but you're not doing free for the cause. That was a big question mark for me because I was ready to do the whole of it. Then I realized ये तो लोगों से सिर्फ इसके पैसे ले रहे हैं.
No, I find that unethical.
That's unethical.
Yeah, that's unethical.
If you're not doing it for free, why are you gaslighting me into
doing it
and
for free,
blackmailing me emotionally in a way that, you know, you do things for women, so do this for women for free.
I think it comes down to...
And honestly, like Hadia, I feel like I am already doing what I want to do for women for free.
Absolutely.
In my capacity.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And I think that, you know, it does come down to lack of respect for the profession, where which is why I say that influencers need to be so professional, because you need to build that respect for that profession so people know that, okay, fine, if I'm paying this person is going to give their 100% and they're going to be completely professional and accountable.
वही पाकिस्तानी कल्चर आ जाता है ना कि जहाँ आप बोलो कि नहीं, no, I want to take money for this, or like I deserve money for this. बदतमीज है. Influencers तो जो हैं वो बस money hungry हैं.
And because I think because influencers at times bring you instant results as well. Sometimes an influencer will post something for you and you will see an instant spike in following for the brand, or an instant spike in sales, or an instant spike in, you know, website visits. These are all KPIs that matter, right? So you need to be able to compensate. And I think one of the biggest, like, I don't understand why people question influencer rates so much. I've never been able to, you know, understand that. And I think it's very, very unfair because it is a difficult job and it is hard work. It is a lot of hard work, and I personally really respect, and I think that this is why I'm in this field and why I'm able to run my agencies, because I respect influencers and their work. And it surprises me when sometimes I see somebody who's sitting on the brand side and they don't respect it, because then I'm like, how can you work with somebody if you don't respect their profession?
No, and Hadia, if you really think कि हम बकवास कर रहे हैं, then why do you need us?
Yeah, seriously.
The fact that you need us shows that we are doing something
right,
that deserves that value, that is of worth, that means that we deserve the money, right? Like if I have to go and I feel like यार कोई भी मैंने काम कराना हो, मुझे किसी से कराना है, तो दैट मीन्स कि मुझे पता है कि यार उस बंदे की कोई वैल्यू है, कोई वर्थ है, और अगर वो उस चीज़ के पैसे मांग रहा है तो फिर मुझे क्या ये सोचना चाहिए कि यार ये तो बस एक पिक्चर खींच के डाल रहा है? नहीं, you
need to respect it. So I think, and I'm, like I said, I'm glad influencers are realizing now that they should be, you know, they should have their own pricing strategy. And, you know, it's funny, different people have different way of quoting. So people will quote according to payment timelines. If you pay in advance, I'll take less. If you're paying later, I'll pay more. Yeah. Some people will quote according to the brand size they charge. And I think this is something that needs to be said a lot. I think if not every content creator charges less for smaller brands and they charge more for bigger brands. And a lot of people do accommodate.
Yeah, I do that as well. If it's a smaller brand,
yeah, a lot of content creators do that, Hamna. People are very supportive towards local businesses. Content creators are very supportive towards...
I think, small business or local business, so it's running on the back of influencers.
And because over the years, I'm sure you've noticed, we have so many small businesses now. And that's really great to see. It's really encouraging.
And even some who are really small have become so big and literally just through influencer marketing.
And influencers support them wholeheartedly. I would say, I think influencers are so supportive of local businesses, of small businesses. And ironically, they get hate for that.
Yeah.
उनको hate मिलती है कि वो इस brand को क्यों promote कर रहे हैं, इस brand को इतने influencer से बात की है. What's wrong about it?
And I think वही बात है ना कि a lot of people don't even know कि behind the scenes क्या हो रहा है. कि जब मेरे पास एक small business आता है, वो आता है, तो फिर मैं अपने charges different कर देती हूँ. If I really feel like supporting it, so I'm like कि ठीक है, but if you're a small business, then I'll take इतना, फिर उसमें हाँ.
And a lot of content creators do that, and it's so like honestly, they don't have to. They don't owe it to anybody. I don't know why people feel like they owe it to somebody. They really don't owe it to anybody. They do it out of goodwill, also because we want to support our local economy, also because you want to support small businesses. And that's very encouraging, and it's a nice thing. And uspe bhi sometimes I feel they get so much hate for it for some reason कि oh हर brand को promote कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए भी post किया. But let them be, like, you know, they're trying to put out the word for local business. Let them do it.
But I just feel like, of course, influencers need to take responsibility of what they're promoting, what they're not promoting. ठीक है, if it's something that you would, you know, you don't actually align with,
then don't promote
it, right? If you and I also think कि वही वाली बात है कि आज एक शैम्पू के बारे में बात करें, कल दूसरे की बात करें. That's wrong. That's on you to, like.
I feel like there've also been some campaigns where the brief has been a little off and people have still done it. And like, I don't want to take names or anything, but I just feel like it's wrong because
it's wrong.
Again, मतलब मुझे से भी होता है, again, it's their choice, it's their platform. They can do whatever they want. I don't care about that. But you damage the industry, because then you damage the reputation of influencer marketing, you damage the credibility of the entire industry, and it does come back. It comes back to the entire, like, people, when I am going to pitch, then it आ जाती ना बात, लेकिन वो तो फिर हर brand को promote करती है, या वो तो फिर, you know, they make content that isn't, you know, people are giving hate on it, blah. You're damaging
damaging it.
So please, so even if you're taking, you know, work for a reliable, well-known brand, I think it is an influencer's responsibility to also put their foot down if the brief doesn't make sense, or if the requirement of the brand doesn't make sense. If you're putting together something that you wouldn't actually do, it's a little, you know, okay, does this actually what consumers would be doing? No, so don't do it, you know. And I think a lot of influencers now have the power to give that pushback, because brands would want to still work with them, and then they will give them that creative liberty. You know, I have at times gone back to clients and said, this influencer wants to do something differently, and they are open to it. Because an influencer knows their audience the best. They know their platform the best. They know what they can shoot and what will work the best. So there is no point in arguing and shoving something down someone's throat to do it this way. I like to be open to what people tell me, okay, I can do this better if I do it like this. I'm like, okay, fine, do it. But if you feel like a brand is giving you something that doesn't make sense, at least, you know, have the credibility to say no, or just tell them, you know, I want to shoot it in a different way. It doesn't make sense. Because I've seen some campaigns where I'm also like, why would this person, because I've also worked with those people and I know they know they're sensible. So sometimes I think आपको काम मिलता है, you don't maybe realize at that point that this doesn't make sense.
But I also feel like कि कभी कभार इस तरह भी होता है. हादिया, मैं आपको उस वक्त कही थी कि बैक एंड फोर्थ आप एक ब्रांड के साथ जा रहे हो, वो आपको कह रहा है कि कभी कभार इस तरह भी होता है कि आपको एक इनिशियल ब्रीफ मिलती है. समटाइम्स द ब्रीफ्स आर वेरी वेग. ठीक है, वो आपको एक देंगे और आप कहेंगे आप अपनी मर्ज़ी से इस तरह कर लें. ठीक है, उसके बाद फीडबैक जाता है, वो कहेंगे यार इसमें से आप ये हटा दें, ये हटा दें, ये हटा दें. फिर कभी कभार वो उसमें ऐसी चीज़ कहते हैं आप इसमें ये ऐड कर दें. ठीक है, ठीक है. एंड समटाइम्स दैट थिंग, एंड ये मेरे साथ हो चुका है, दैट दे वांट मी टू ऐड, आई डू नॉट वांट टू पुट दैट आउट देयर फॉर माय ऑडियंस, राइट? एंड दैट इज व्हेन
the vibe of the video.
And that is when, Hadia, I have to say I'm sorry but I can't do this anymore. जिसमें आप कह रहे थे ना कि people back out. Sometimes I feel like influencers have to back out.
No.
Like if they're asking for something ridiculous, या वही again मेरी
if your credibility is on the line, then you should back out.
Yeah, absolutely. Not like casually कि अच्छा I can't do it.
mood नहीं रहा
करने का.
But yeah, if your credibility is on the line, I think I respect people who do that. Like I don't know, there was this one that like Pakistan में एक ज़माने में बहुत practice थी कि brand would shoot TVCs and then they would give those to influencers. And influencers would, and I used to see at that time that some of the more bigger accounts, people I used to work with, they would only post those on their stories, and I thought that was smart.
I have done that.
Yeah, that's smart, because you're still taking on the work, but stories पे it makes sense. It's okay. But on your feed, why would you want to post a brand का ad जिसमें आप भी नहीं हो, nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your audience? You are not a magazine outlet. You're not a publication.
You're not a content distributor.
Yeah.
You are a content creator. So essentially, every piece that you're putting out, create it yourself.
You need to create it yourself. So I felt like at that time, again, influencers should also have the wisdom to say that this is not how my platform should be used.
Yeah.
because that's a really bad practice that's gone on for years in Pakistan, and I still hear people saying, let's do that, and I'm like, no, let's not do that. Let's use content creators in other ways, like stories mein aap unse kuch bulwa do, they can comment on your TVC or whatever, but you know, it's not an effective way of using content creators. Your TVC or your DVC is for your own platforms. Use it there.
Yeah, why are you now asking content? वो आपने story में डलवाना है, ठीक है, आप
करवा लो,
but you know, डाल दो,
उसको
this
boost
is
कर
really
दो.
nice ad.
If you have budget, just boost it and get it more eyeballs, right? That's what you want. But use content creators in effect. So the content creator should also have the wisdom to say, I know it's probably very difficult, obviously at times, to give that pushback, but I think we're at that point now in our industry where आप pushback दे सकते हो, because brands know कि these people know what they're talking about. They have a much better understanding of social media and content creation.
But again, वही like you said, उस pushback को अब abuse भी ना करें कि अब जब दिल नहीं जा रहा तो you backed out and
नहीं वो नहीं, but sensibly use it, because sometimes I think, you know, brands come up with ideas that make sense to them, because obviously they look at everything from a very branded angle. And we look at things from the audience's angle, कि audience किस चीज़ से resonate करेगी. Even when I'm trying, I see like, oh, what would the audience like to see? So उसका balance strike करना होता है थोड़ा सा between what the brand needs and what the audience likes, and then you make a mix of that and then you put it out for your audience.
I think agencies play a huge role in this.
They do, I agree.
Like Hadia, like with a lot of agencies, I felt like they're very बस brand wants this तो आप ये कर दें. They don't give that because they don't want to lose their client, right?
Yes.
So they don't give the pushback or the feedback that the influencer is giving to the brand. तो वो I think responsibility हर level पे, फिर वो agency level पे भी है कि they need to counsel the brand. I know that you have.
No, I've pissed off a few brands, I think, with that.
With you I know very well. ठीक है?
Because मैं जाके बोल देती हूँ कि this is going to work, and then they get offended at times कि why she's
पता है क्यों ये होता है? इसलिए भी क्योंकि जो ब्रांड्स होते हैं वो कहते हैं यार हम आपका क्लाइंट है तो आप सिर्फ हमारी साइड पे हो, राइट? बट दिस इज another person is involved और उसका प्लेटफॉर्म है, तो उसके जो फीडबैक और वो आ रहा है वो ज़रूरी है. ऑब्वियसली एजेंसीज they don't want to lose their clients, right?
I agree.
तो वो consistently push करते हैं to influencers to keep doing what the brand is saying.
No, Hamna, you're right, and I feel like a lot of the times that I've been pitching to some clients that I haven't gotten, it has been because of that, because they wanted to hear stuff like filter बना लो, फिर influencers वो filter use कर लें, and I don't pitch stuff like that. I pitch very organic stuff. So that doesn't resonate with a lot of the clients when I go in for pitches, because they're like, no, but उसमें तो brand doesn't get visibility, लोगों को समझ नहीं आएगी brand की, and I'm telling them, no, that's not the case, because if you look at content that's online and you look at global content as well, a lot of people do very organic way of marketing, and it works. Organic marketing works very well.
It always works better, in fact.
So I think even in my case, a lot of the clients don't understand what I'm saying, and I'm lucky that I've actually had a few very, very good clients जिनको बिल्कुल समझ आती है, and they really trust me. So sometimes they ask me like, oh, like for example, if we're doing an event and I'm like, send one macro influencer and that's enough, because I believe in quality over quantity. So I think अगर आप एक अच्छे content creator से काम करवा रहे हो, that is sufficient as compared to using 10 smaller accounts who might not have that engagement with their 10 random accounts. And I've had clients say, okay, fine. And they don't understand it fully. They're like, but why? वो तो सिर्फ एक बंदा जा रहा है, you know? And I'm like, because that one person has such a strong engagement with their audience, it is sufficient. So engagement rates की जब मैं बातें करती हूँ ना, some clients really get it, some people don't get it. Some people, they're like, no, but followers, it comes down to, and you know, it's surprising because अब in 2023 followers don't matter at all.
No, they don't.
आपकी reach आपके followers से determine होती ही नहीं है, आपकी engagement से होती है, and you know if you're the right fit for the campaign.
Yeah, और ये भी तो बड़ा मसला है ना कि पता नहीं किस तरह के influencer को किस तरह की काम के स्किन केयर इन्फ्लुएंसर है तो कुकिंग ऑयल, that makes no, that's actually quite the opposite, like
what they should be hired for. But again वो awareness नहीं है market में, and it is, you know, it's a long, I think we have a long way to go.
जिसमें हादिया ये भी है कि influencer also needs to realize that if this is my niche, then I shouldn't be talking about this. अगर मुझे brand से आ भी रहा है ना, so I should respectfully say no.
A lot of people do now. I think I've had people who
most people do
now, but there are some people, again I think it comes down to your strategy, right? If you just want to pick up work and you want to, some content creators do that. They're like,
no, and sometimes you are like you need the money also, right? People do need the money, so they will take it up as long as it's not doing any harm to their audience.
Yes.
It's उसमें कुछ unethical नहीं है, उसमें campaign में कुछ immoral नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, तो चलो.
And I think we should have that empathy to also understand कि you know
this is their work.
And yeah, look at the economy. Everybody needs work. Everybody is trying to struggle. You know, everyone's struggling with the inflation and what's going on. So you should have the empathy. Like I said, my only thing is that if a content creator is taking on a campaign, just may brief, itna absurd hai कि it doesn't make sense कि what am I shooting, then you should flag it. But if you're taking on work that doesn't fit with your niche, but it's not, anybody can talk about food, right? Even if you're a fashion influencer, you can still do a restaurant review or do a recipe video because food is relevant. So fine, it might not be your niche, but you can still do it. Like you said, it doesn't harm their audience. It's not misinformation. It's not disinformation. मुझे सिर्फ होता है when you're kind of doing something that doesn't make sense, then just flag it for your own credibility and for the industry that you're working in, because our industry at the moment it needs that credibility. And I don't care, like I think hate comments तो फिर भी आएंगे in any case, right? That's something that you should never be bothered about, because anyone who has like a large audience is always going to have a few people who are going to come and leave a nasty comment or something like that. And that actually happens on branded content a lot as well. And I have to explain to clients as well at times that if you're working with a macro influencer, they have such a large audience, it's okay if somebody comes and leaves a hate comment or whatever, because sometimes brands also get bit, oh, does this damage our brand? And you're like, no,
इस हमारी इस वीडियो के नीचे लोग ये आके लिख रहे हैं.
But I tell them it doesn't damage your brand. Some hate is very random, and it's not, most of the times actually it's just random and it doesn't make sense, so you have to ignore it. And it's unfortunate that, you know, digital space mein, but I think it's a global thing, hate on the internet.
I think वो हर जगह हो रहा है.
It's just unfortunate that the digital
there's
space,
all kinds of people, right?
There are also people who are very appreciative of you know, the work that's going out there, but ये भी होता है. Hate is always a part of it.
It's part of it.
Which is why I think influencers का काम is so difficult, because you have to really have a thick skin to really be out there every day and put up content and take that risk of, you know, people can be
just doing anything with you.
People can be vile at times. Like even आजकल maybe people can be, are they posting enough about a cause, are they not posting enough about it, ऐसे क्यों पोस्ट कर रहे हैं, वैसे क्यों पोस्ट कर रहे हैं,
which is essentially not entirely fair to people जिनका ये काम है. So, but that's a very complicated sort of debate.
It is a complicated thing, and I think anybody who has a public account has that kind of responsibility as well to know that they know that, you know, when sometimes when a cause comes up, something, they do have to raise their voice, because they have a voice that they can use. It comes with a responsibility. But obviously you can't talk about each and everything as well.
You can't.
So you have to find, and you also have to then educate yourself to be able to talk about something. So
you can't do it mindlessly.
You can't do it because
वही बात है. Today I saw a video ना कि किसी ने डाली हुई थी कि listen, like I know that everybody is just putting stuff out there, आप लोगों को pressure बहुत ज़्यादा डालने to do it, but जिसने डालना है उसने पहले सब कुछ देखना है, verify करना है, फिर डालना है. And also like, and especially when it's something that's so difficult for your mental health also, then you have to go through all of that to post it. It's a lot. It is. So a lot. if you want to keep it going on for a longer time, then you have to do it aram se, right? If you wanna, like, because otherwise to burn out hai na? Because influencers are also humans.
I was going to say, do you guys feel a burnout on using social media so much, because your work is all on social media, then there's like a organic aspect to it as well, sharing your life, making your own content on social media, then consuming content on social media.
So as a creator, what I do is that with my consumption, I'm very careful. आजकल मेरी consumption बहुत ज़्यादा हुई भी है because of everything that's happening, but generally मेरा ये है कि I don't consume for what people might think कि मैं बहुत consume करती हूँ. So for me, the Instagram app is a creativity app. So I've really limited मेरा जो Instagram का time है वो मैंने limit किया हुआ है. So I don't use it over a certain number of hours in a day.
Because I'm sure it can be very overwhelming at times then.
Yeah, and what it does is that the more you consume, the less you are able to create. Because it chips away from your own creativity and your own inspiration. जितना आप उसको consume करते हो फिर आप create नहीं कर सकते. You need to, if you want to create something organic, if you want to create something nice, if you want to create something authentic, you have to step away from what everybody else is doing. It's very, very important, because otherwise you get really lost कि अच्छा सब लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, ये वो कर रहे हैं, you know, you keep going, you're just like आप क्या करो. It can get, you have to be inwards.
I'm sure it can
create,
get overwhelming.
Yes.
Because it gets overwhelming for me sometimes, because I have to, you know, be like, I do have a team and I do have like Gen Z people as well who tell me the Gen Z trends and everything. But I also have to use it a lot to understand what's going on in the digital space, right? It's constantly evolving. रोज ही कुछ नया आया होता है.
But I genuinely think that creators should not consume much. Some people might disagree, but I'm pretty sure about it, because the more a creator consumes, the less they're able to create authentically. Because then they have way too much noise of what everybody else is doing. So, ठीक है, it's great to hop on trends, but they're not everything, because there will come a time when this is not a long game. Trends is not a long game.
I was gonna say, I think trends,
you need fresh air, and people who are playing the long game would never hop on fads.
I think trends come and go very quickly, and the whole idea of, you know, hopping onto trends is not something that's going to be around forever.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, and at a certain point, the way we make content and the way we consume content will change again, like it did in the past. So TikTok aaya and things changed.
It's always a pendulum. It's gonna go back.
It's going to go back to people wanting more original, authentic content again, not what everybody else is doing.
Hadia, long format never goes away. YouTube is still there. The Viners came. Where are they? Where are the wines? Right? So this is a thing that I've noticed in the way that content creation has evolved. Sure, this is what's happening right now, but you like the वही बात है, जितने आप शॉर्टकट्स और क्विक स्टेप्स लोगे ना, इट्स नॉट अ लॉन्ग गेम. इट्स गना, इफ यू गेट टू मच इनटू द ट्रेंड्स, देन that's not a long game. It's going to end at some point. And when you start jumping on trends too much, what you do is, again, you lose your authenticity, you lose your own creativity. और आप किस point तक वो करते जाओगे, right? Sure, that may get you more views at this point and more likes at this point. But then what?
It's not a long-term strategy. No. It's a one-off thing, you know, like once a month you find a trend, you hop onto it and you make something and it kind of sticks or resonates with people. But I think you're right, long-term, it's not a long-term strategy. And again, it's all comes down to reinventing yourself. So and to do that, you need to look inwards. You can never reinvent yourself or what you want to do or who you are. Or I feel like as a creator, your main responsibility or your main job is to be yourself. Yes.
Because that is your biggest unique selling point. And that is what it is.
People can tell when you're like, audiences are so smart. You can tell when a content creator is being authentic or when they are not being authentic. And the authentic ones are the ones that actually influence people. And when you're not as authentic, you can be a content creator, but you might not have that influence over your audience because, you know, wo connection nahi banta logon ka. They can tell.
It's about being very easily replaceable. So if you're doing something that everybody is doing, if you're following the trends, then you are essentially building yourself towards a very easily replaceable creator, because if you're doing what everybody's doing, then
somebody else can also do it.
They'll switch.
Your superpower is being yourself. Because there's nobody else like you.
Which, by the way, like, so I'm just saying, so for some people, for some creators, if they consume and they don't lose that for themselves, that's great.
I'm sure everyone has their own way of
doing it. But I feel like, and especially if you're depending on the trends, then you have to consume. Right? But if you're not, then that can be very dangerous, because you do end up losing yourself if you're just looking outwards. As a creator, you have to look inwards. What do you what do you want to talk about? Or do you just want to talk about what everybody's talking about, right? Then where does that leave your authentic voice? And for anything, like,
and I think
it's not just content creation. When it comes to creating anything, art, food, kuch bhi, it's always inwards. It's never about what's
and I think that's what brands also need to leverage in partnerships, the authentic voice of a consumer. Okay, this is their product or their service. How can the influencer make it their own, or, you know, make it part of their own life, or make it part of their organic story, without it coming off as the brand saying, oh, ye you know, it should come as you saying, oh, I as an influencer like this product or like this brand or use this brand because of what value it brings to your life or to, so allowing an influencer to use their authentic voice is the beauty of influencer marketing if you do it correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, you let someone use their authentic voice, but also partner with your brand. They have that balance, and that's why it's also important to, I think, find the right influencer
for what you
ताकि वो authentically कर भी सके,
वो alignment हो, एक organic सी alignment हो between the brand and the influencer,
because that person actually believes in the same values. I think that's also why focusing on brand values is so important. And at times I feel, again, हम यहाँ पे ना, a lot of the work that we do in Pakistan is mostly around marketing for sales or marketing for awareness, but it's not about brand values. I remember when COVID hit, I would try to tell a lot of brands to work on campaigns that were around brand values, especially bigger brands who could afford to do it, as opposed to, because at that time people weren't interested in buying something, or it was mostly about, people wanted to connect with others. And उसमें brand values बहुत matter करती हैं, and brand building बहुत matter करती है. And I think brand building is very absent. And if you do brand building, that's when you actually can let an influencer use their authentic voice. Even with podcasts, like if you want, it is about brand building. If you invite somebody and you, like a brand, and they come and talk about their business and you connect with them, you're giving them an authentic voice while them leveraging your platform. But I think even podcasts aren't used in Pakistan as effectively because हम वो उस तरह की marketing पे आते ही नहीं है. And a lot of our marketing is very quick. Put the word out there, next cheese. CL आ गई है, put the word out there.
Exactly.
Next cheese. So I think I would love to do campaigns that are around brand building, because I think they're so impactful. Like, that's the true power of marketing, how you allow people to actually connect with your brand on a human level.
On a human level.
Not just about the product or the service. It's what your brand stands for. That's rare to do here.
Like this reminds me of one campaign that I did with Ariel. So they and I understand why they reached out. So they were really smart in the fact कि उनकी campaign चल रही थी of share the load.
I remember that
campaign. And वो था laundry load से उन्होंने लेके, because it's Ariel.
I think it was a global campaign that cascaded down to Pakistan.
Yes, so they chose me
and
Muzammil to do it, because sharing the load as husband and wife, and so it wasn't about Ariel कितना effective है धोने में, but it was about the value of that brand, right? So वो
that's a nice message to put out there as well in a but again, that's like, it has a bit of a cause, social stance to it as well, and I think that's something that a lot of brands don't really get into. Yeah, if they do, they're not really sure. Like, I feel like International Women's Day pe na, every brand wants to say something, but none of it, like most of it, doesn't seem authentic.
No, it doesn't.
Because आप पूरे साल उस पे कोई बात नहीं कर रहे हो औरतों के बारे में,
ना बात कर रहे हो, ना आप एक्चुअली कोई अपनी कंपनीज में कुछ कर रहे हो for the women.
And also
Women's Day पे celebrate
also हम ना, I feel like as somebody who's, because I used to organize International Women's Day when I was a culture and diversity lead, and then I've done campaigns around it and everything. Sometimes I feel like the conversation actually damages the cause, because when you're not equipped to have that conversation and you're just trying to jump onto the bandwagon, and you're just trying to bring people together forcefully to talk about women and inclusivity and diversity, and the men aren't receptive to it and the females don't even know what's going, वो actually cause को damage करता है.
Agreed.
So like even this year I saw a few conversations where I was at this co-working space, and the conversations they were having, and they were it was really damaging the cause rather than helping it. So I feel like abhi, for example, October chal raha hai, everyone's talking about breast cancer awareness. There are some brands that do it really well, and they partner with people and they do it in a very impactful way. And then, so I think it's good to do it if you can do justice to it. If you can't, then don't jump onto every cause as well.
No, because the thing is that brands, like उन्होंने बहुत सारी causes को commercialize कर दिया, right? It's about it becomes about that, and then
it becomes like a buzzword. So I think you should do it. It's a trend then. So like you said, like that was an impactful campaign, but sometimes even those campaigns can be tricky if it's just to act like you want कि आपका brand be is involved in this cause, या you're acting woke and you're not actually.
No, but I think it's okay कि अगर वो एक brand की एक campaign चल रही है, rather than कि अच्छा बस Women's Day पे हो रहा है. समझा रही है?
If it's just that one day, because
because I feel like brands and business actually they can play a huge role in all of these. और ये करते हैं, and I've seen like globally brands जो हैं वो बड़ी campaigns करते हैं on some major things, and they make some major statements, and
they do it very very nicely. Like very like you said, the organic, it comes organically, because in your case, for example, Muzammil is actively involved in the household and he talks about it as well on his Instagram, so it makes sense. अगर आप किसी ऐसे इन्फ्लुएंसर को पकड़ा दो जिसके हस्बैंड ने कभी अपनी शक्ल नहीं दिखाई घर पे, and now he's saying I'm sharing the load, you will be, audience will be like, what?
And that's what I'm saying, right? कि वो picking the right influencer. Influencers saying no to things
when that don't really make sense for them.
That don't really make sense for them. I also did another campaign, मुझे याद ही नहीं आ रहा, वो भी इसी तरह के रिलेटेड थी, एंड that was with Cleanipedia, so वो भी husband and wife के उसके ऊपर थी, तो उसमें then we added this part where the time where Muzammil struggled to do it, because उसके अंदर मुझे कुछ चीज़ें नजर आई थी, I was like कि नहीं ऐसे नहीं हुआ था, this is not true to my life, इसमें मैं ये डाल सकती हूँ कि हाँ इतना आसान नहीं था.
So you took the brief and made it your own.
Made it my own. कि मैं झूठ नहीं बोल सकती, because it was telling my story, right? So they told me the story that they wanted me to tell.
Coming to that point,
that's not my story.
Something that I've noticed now is that I really really like it when influencers take a brief and make it their own, but sometimes you give someone a brief and they want to do something completely different.
Okay.
And then you're like,
ये तो brief ही नहीं है.
You're like, we gave you a brief and they're like, oh, we thought that was just a suggestion. And again, it comes down to communication, because if you thought it was just a suggestion, you can say, oh, by the way, this doesn't sit right with me and I want to do it differently. And then that's also okay, and I'll be like, okay, fine.
I think it's okay, because if there's a brand that, for example, brings a campaign to me and I like the campaign, I want to work with the brand, I think the influencer does have the freedom to say, okay, oh, but how about I do it like this? It's like they're working together. Okay.
I like that. But I think, again, you should communicate that.
Of course,
so expectations are aligned, and then when the final product comes out, there's no surprises कि oh ये बात में सीन तो नहीं हो गई इस पूरे चीज में. So and I think like a brief should not be restrictive. It should not be set in stone either कि आपने exactly ये करना है. Sometimes some people do that. They're like, oh, we want exactly ऐसा content. It kills creativity.
एक बात बताओ, sometimes brands, they will ask you to make a vlog or tell your story, and they'll tell you the story. And I'm just like, listen, so you want me to tell my followers कि ये हुआ जबकि नहीं हुआ? I'm like, can you let me think of a story
and then plug it in,
which is true to me, because ये मेरे साथ हो चुका है.
But that then is an ad. If you're telling somebody to play out a whole narrative, that's an ad. It's like a script.
It's a script, but then it has to be made to look that way as well. Na? But it's being made to look कि oh ये आप vlog बनाए, story बताए, as if like
it's actually happening. So I've seen content that seems very scripted, and it feels like an influencer has been given a script and they are okay with it. And you're right, because even in a scripted situation you can still say कि oh मैं अपनी real life में से कोई example लेके I can play around with it and then deliver that content. But it comes down to again that understanding of influencer marketing and what are you trying to achieve, because if you want them to play out a script, it's like hiring talent and saying कि oh ये talent है and हम ये ad make करने लगे, and then this talent is shooting this ad for us.
And then it should be different. Like मुझे होता है
then it should be posted on your profile, it should be on the brand's profile.
On the brand's
only.
profile. या तो फिर अगर आप चाहते हो कि मैं ये story दिखाऊं, तो मैं उसको एक side से shoot करके दिखा दूंगी कि ये हुआ, so that it looks literally like a drama or a movie people are watching. लेकिन मैं बैठ के ये नहीं कहूंगी, मेरा voice over नहीं होगा कि oh you know when I had a baby then this happened and this happened and this happened. No, I'm not gonna say that, because this is not what happened.
It's not what happened.
Right? That's not, and the fact is that it matters to me because I do share with people what actually happened. So I don't want that to lose credibility ना. कल को मैं actual में जब बात करूँगी अजीब सा हो जाएगा.
I agree. No, the balance needs to be there. And again, if for example, and I've actually had influencers say this, कि if a brand wants to do this for their profile only, I'm happy to follow their script. Because most of unke platform pe ja raha hai, it's not coming on my own social media, I'm happy with it. But if you want me to post on my social media, then you have to give me the creative liberty. So people actually do, and I'm mentioning all this because I feel like audiences ko ye baat pata nahi hota. They feel like influencers just go up, take any work and do anything that a brand says. That's not true. No. That's actually not true.
They actually do put up a lot of fight to do what they want to, at the cost of being very badtameez. Even towards wo ki yaar hum ye nahi karna chahte.
No, I think all the really actually influential content creators jo hain, they actually do find that balance where they're able to say ki listen, I don't want to do it like this, I will do it like that. And I think in most cases the brand or the agency actually is able to give them that space. It might take a bit of a fight, like you said, but I think eventually they do get around.
They do, yeah. And I feel like us end pe bhi, I think the brands now really understand. A lot of people really, as much as we have a long way to go, I feel like brands and agencies have really come far in supporting influencers in the way that they want to do things as well.
I also feel that, I feel like to a certain extent, yes, brands have come around to understanding it. Like, I'll give you a small example. A collaborative post ka feature is fairly new, right? Some influencers are okay with doing it. Some people charge extra for it. And brands now understand that. Well, like I think in the past they would have been like, why aren't all, they understand that every creator has their own rule. So when I am telling a client ki, oh, this person is charging extra for it, if this person has even refused to do a collaborative post, they will understand. And there are examples of that ki, like, you know, people have their own way of doing something and they're like, we don't want to do this because it doesn't sit with our profile, ya hum is tarah kaam nahi karte, and then brands back off. It does, you know, it sometimes I feel like people pick irrelevant battles as well.
Yeah, that's true.
कि वो अगर कर भी देंगे, it's a mutually beneficial thing, करने दो. Sometimes people get very, you know, but in most cases I think content creators now are able to determine कि what do we want to do, and then have that conversation with an agency or a brand कि हम तो actually में ऐसे करना चाहते हैं, या हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पे. Again, my only thing is आप पहले timely inform कर दो, ये ना हो कि आप लगाने के बाद को कि बट मैंने तो ऐसे ही करना था, and that's it done. You know, there's like a way of doing it as well in which it still remains professional and civil. But in most cases I think people do know how to use their platform effectively.
I think मुझे कभी influencers पे तरस भी आता है because they're very stuck. Because a lot of times it's just like a ब्रांड को कुछ चाहिए and they have to build a good relationship with the brand, right? Because उन्होंने काम करने, लेकिन उनको पता है कि अच्छा ऑडियंस का क्या मसला है, तो या वो ऑडियंस को नाराज़ कर रहे होंगे या वो ब्रांड को नाराज़ कर रहे होंगे, जो आजकल भी चल रहा है विद द वे कि यार उन्होंने कब से कैंपेन्स को वो किया हुआ है, लेकिन उनको पता है कि अब वो डालेंगे तो उसके नीचे लोग उनको आके अटैक करेंगे, तो फिर बिकॉज दे नो अच्छा नाउ वी बीइंग इनसेंसिटिव टुवर्ड्स आवर ऑडियंस, बट देन कैंपेन ब्रांड की चल रही है, पैसा लगा हुआ है, उनको भी तो हमने कमिट किया हुआ है, राइट? सो आइदर वेज यू आर जस्ट बिकमिंग दिस बैड गाय. And it's such a tough spot to be in.
It is a tough spot. I do think the solution is just effective communication. Like, I've seen so many content creators just put up a story saying, hey, you know, this is my work, please respect it. And that's, I think, a very nice way to go about it. कि आप openly एक message दे दो. You know, things have been on hold. I can't keep them on hold for too much longer. Please respect that. That's nice to be upfront about it. And same with brands. Be upfront. If you like can't post for some reason, yeah, if you don't want to, say it in a like हमना, I'm going to be very honest. I've had people delay post कि ओ मैं सोती रह गई. And मुझे होता है कि यार आप बहाना ही बना दो. Don't be so.
लेकिन मैं आपको बताऊँ हादिया, जब मैंने एक पॉइंट पे बहुत ज़्यादा काम लेना शुरू कर दिया था ना, तब मेरे साथ ये होना शुरू हो गया था. वो एक होता है ना कि इफ़ यू टेकिंग टू मच वर्क यू कांट हैंडल सो मच, विच इज़ ऑल्सो वाई वो जब भी मेरे पास बहुत ज़्यादा काम आना शुरू हो जाता है या मेरे लिए डिफ़िकल्ट हो जाता है टू मैनेज, आई ऑलवेज रेज माई रेट्स. दैट मीन्स कि डिमांड सप्लाई में फ्लॉ है. लाइक इफ एवरी ब्रांड इज एबल टू हायर मी फॉर देयर वर्क, हैव एक्सेस एंड अग्री टू वर्किंग विद मी, and that is resulting in my own burnout, yeah, me being unprofessional or me being able to post on time, then I'm like, okay, this means if it's so easy for a brand to afford me, right, this means that I need to raise the charges because मैं irresponsible नहीं हो सकती
towards your work,
towards my work, towards the brands, towards the people. क्योंकि मेरे साथ ये होता था, too much work जब आ रहा होता था ना, And for some reason, when I was postpartum, I was getting so much work, theek hai? And I was postpartum, so I was sleep deprived.
Was it related to your
No, it wasn't even. I don't know why, but उस वक्त market बहुत उन years में economy was a bit better, और market flourish कर रही थी और बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा था. तो it was just like कि मैं इतनी overwhelmed हो गई थी with the campaigns that I used to get, कि उस वक्त क्या हो रहा था कि I was being irresponsible as well, कि सो गई साहिर, I'm postpartum, I'm exhausted, I'm tired.
Yeah, that's a different situation though as well.
In which I do have to really like appreciate the brands who understood that as well. कि listen, like my life is very hard right now, you know, so like मुश्किल हो रहा है, and they understood कि अच्छा, you know, she's like,
there is a human element to working with anybody, and you should respect the human element, and that goes for all parties involved, right? Like dealing with anybody, you should give them the respect of a human being first, which is why I said कि आप at least communicate तो करो ना कि this is my situation.
हाँ, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है.
And then the person can find you a solution as well. I think it's inhumane to put somebody who's in a difficult situation, या who's, you know, just had a baby कि अभी post करो या follow. You should give somebody that much empathy and respect.
I feel like brands really gave me that. I was really like, I feel like कि मतलब मुझे obviously there were some जिन्होंने बहुत pester किया, but उसमें भी ठीक है, I get it, काम होता है, और individuals पे भी matter करता है हादिया, who is like, everybody is not the same, right?
That's true.
And generally जहाँ पे औरतें काम कर रही हैं, there is more compassion, and especially when I speak to women who are already mothers, तो उसमें तो वो बहुत ही understanding आ जाती है. But वही बात है कि I feel like कि मुझे बहुत brand से support और space और वो मिला था.
That's nice.
और agencies से भी, I think agents play such a huge role, क्योंकि communicate तो brand से वही कर रहे होते हैं. To give me that space, to give me that time. Like I tried my best to be responsible, but sometimes circumstances were just not in my control. So I think
these things happen.
Like I think very,
sometimes
very mature.
Delays भी आ जाते हैं, things get, you know.
It's about being, like you said in the start, it's about just being careless rather than because circumstances are difficult.
It is that. And like one thing I wanted to talk about was, in your case, I think you've had managers as well. And managers होते हैं, but one trend that I have noticed in recent years is that everybody now has a manager. There are in-house managers who actually add a lot of value to the process because they can help you with scheduling, with the scripting, with the location, with the shoots. And then there are managers जो कि external होते हैं, and they're just forwarding messages.
That's not the job.
And वो something that I really want to put out as an agency is, if you are an influencer and you're a content creator and you have a manager who's just forwarding my message to you and your message to me, they're not adding any value to the process, why would you hire them? Because you would still get work from me regardless of their presence, and you would still execute that work in the same manner irregardless of their presence. तो वो आपके पूरे process में what value are they adding?
And
other
why
than,
are you paying them the commission?
I don't get it, Hamna. I don't understand. Like I know some content creators who have in-house managers who actually manage shoots and scripts and timelines, and I understand that. But even then, those influencers are still accessible directly. Like वो एक group बना देते हैं. It's not like वो कहते हैं अब हमने बात ही नहीं करनी, just talk to my manager. There are some content creators who are like, just talk to my manager. And that manager is just forwarding messages. And I'm like, फिर वो manager is not adding value. And you know, it brings an extra layer to the communication, which slows things down, of course. If you have an external manager, or at least what I've seen, they're not as well aware of your schedule or of what's going on in your life. तो वो फिर मुझे भी सही गाइड नहीं कर सकते हैं, वो आपको भी सही गाइड नहीं कर सकते, and then communication breaks down.
I think management is not a very easy role. So लोगों ने समझा हुआ यही है कि messages forward करना. It has a lot of aspects to it, and essentially influencer managers have to take that responsibility and have to add that value. If they're not doing that, then really that influencer is wasting their money.
I mean, I understand if a manager is bringing you new work and then you're like, okay, uski through ho raha hai. But if you've been working with my agency for so many years and I or somebody from my team is reaching out to you and you're like, oh, go to my manager, and that manager is just...
but also Hadia, what also happens is कि जिससे for example मुझे ये लगता है कि जब मेरे पास मैनेजर नहीं था ना, when I used to wake up in the morning, I had a barrage of WhatsApp messages from agencies every day. And a lot of them were queries I was never going to
get the time to get around to?
Like I wasn't interested in. All right, or they weren't going to be able to afford me, or kuch bhi. Yeah, I wasn't interested in that campaign, right? So when I had a manager, a lot of it gets filtered out, right? And it's so important that you have that relationship with your manager, where your manager understands कि यार ये तो नहीं करना है, ये तो ये कर ही नहीं सकते.
I think it works really well if you have an in-house manager. I think what I've seen now is with a lot of people, maybe their strategy is just to pick up a lot of work. A lot of people have agencies managing them. So us agency mein one person is managing, let's say 30, 40 influencers.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't think that
person has no idea. Your manager, if she has like, let's say 3 or 4 different people to manage, or just you to manage, वो कर सकती है. A person has so much. And then when I ask them कि what's going on, वो यही कहते हैं मुझे या मेरी टीम को कि हम इतने लोगों को manage कर रहे हैं तो we don't know. They actually say it. So one of the issues that I've noticed in the whole process is when you're working directly with an influencer and they send you a content piece, आप उसको review करते हो, फिर आप brand को भेजते हो, right? So me, my team, anybody that we don't just directly send it to a client without even looking at it first, right? That's a little, I don't know if anyone does that. That's a little bizarre to me because I'm accountable. Sometimes managers send content and they haven't even viewed it themselves. And then I'm like, but आप तो उसके proxy हो. How can you tell me? I'm asking you, brief was this is missing and this hasn't happened. And they're like, acha, really? So they don't remember the brief. They haven't viewed the final product.
Because they're just forwarding
blindly. To the extent that they're blindly forwarding voice messages. And at times, we're like, we don't want to listen to what your influencer is saying to you. If they are, this is not how you should be working. This is a very bad way of working.
Yeah, and वही बात है कि Hadia, like managers have a lot of responsibility. Look, the reason that I hired a manager is because a lot of the times आपके और like I don't want to ruin my relationship with an agency or a brand over some cup. ठीक है? So what I do is my manager takes it and doesn't and tries to handle that situation
and not pass it on to you.
Yes, and not pass it on to me. मुझे मेरी relationship कभी खराब ही नहीं होगी उनके
and
साथ.
That's exactly what we do with brands.
That's the agent's job. जिस तरह agent का ये काम है उसी तरह
manager का.
लेकिन managers are not doing that.
If an influencer is giving me showing us tantrums, we don't pass that on to the brand because that looks unprofessional.
मैंने voice note अगर भेजा है अपनी manager को कि यार आप इनको बोलेंगे ये क्या बकवास है, do not forward that message. She will listen to my voice notes and she will say, listen, Hamna is saying to can we please and this is what she does. वो मेरे हर message को अगर मैंने tantrum throw किया है तो वो उसको सही से करके
because that's you and your manager in your relationship, which is more informal. Your manager then coming to me and passing on. So at times I've actually gone to agencies that manage people and said, please don't forward messages. I don't want to listen to them. This is not the way to work.
Yes.
I've hired you. You are responsible. You manage it. वो ये कह रही है, वो ये कह रहा है. I don't care. This is not this is about work. So I think that's why managers के साथ काम करना becomes very difficult. And at times I have my agency has been around since 2018, 2019. There's so many people we've been working with for years.
Yeah.
So now even if they have managers और मैं उनसे request करूँ कि आप please directly वो कर लेते हैं काम directly because इतना नखरा नहीं होता कि मेरे manager.
नहीं.
But I feel like some people don't do, if you are getting work directly, why would you not want to take it directly?
Yeah, देखो हादिया जैसा मेरे साथ ये होता है कि for example, I'm traveling for the podcast, I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
You don't have the bandwidth to manage.
I'm going to be losing out on campaigns. So I know that when my manager does the work, it's happening much faster.
But if it's not happening faster, अगर वो सिर्फ forward ही कर रहे हैं messages.
So that's the problem with managers. Influencers need to hire better managers, but managers are essential because there's so much influencers can do by themselves. And also
I think once you've grown to a certain
क्योंकि अगर आप कुछ shoot भी कर रहे हो ना, production भी आप करते हो, talent भी आप ही हो, ठीक है, post भी आपने करना होता है because essentially this we're not ये TVCs थोड़ी बना रहे हैं कि हमारे पास इतनी बड़ी teams हैं. Content creators, influencers essentially do everything themselves. So if the negotiation aspect can be managed by somebody else, I think it's really helpful.
I think it works for macro influencers, but a lot of micros,
they don't need to.
Young kids, your Gen Z kids who are just starting out, why do you need a manager?
In fact, I think Hadia, it's actually very important for them to be hands-on, because that is why they're not understanding the process because they're not going through it. मैंने तो सालों के बाद जाके मैंने 2014 में काम स्टार्ट किया है, 2020 में मैंने मैनेजर रखा है. So
that makes sense.
6 years
you did yourself.
I knew
and then you learned how to manage things and how to work with brands and how to take feedback. अगर आप शुरू में ही एक मैनेजर को सबको देती, योर ओन लर्निंग कर्व वुड नॉट हैव बीन देयर.
आपको इंडस्ट्री की समझ ही नहीं आई.
सो आई फील लाइक मैनेजर्स, like a message that I really want to put out there is, don't hire a manager until you've actually learned yourself, and unless they're actually adding value to you and your entire process. In-house managers, in my opinion, as an agency, work so much better, because I've worked with content creators who've had in-house managers and they have been so pleasant to work with, because they are more collaborative. वो एक group बना लेंगे with the creator, they're more open to communication, they're more, and also because they understand digital space much better.
Yeah, because they're working so closely.
Yes.
हाँ, साथ.
अक्सर ऐसे मैनेजर्स भी होते हैं जिनको आप कोई सिंपल चीज़ भी कहोगे ना कि कैप्शन में ये एडिट करा दो, they don't know कि Instagram, for example, allows editing and caption. So we've had people fighting with us कि नहीं अब तो लग गया, अब क्यों हम चेंज करें. And you know, it's just a very...
And these are people's managers.
Yes. And यार हम ना, it's a toxic way of working ना, हर बात पे लड़ाई करना. ये फिर you have to explain to them कि no, it's editable, हो जाता है, ये तो कोई चीज़ ही नहीं है, आप करवा दें. फिर वो पूछते हैं. So you see how it breaks down communication.
So it's not actually making it faster, more effective. It's doing the opposite.
And it's making it more difficult as well. So I think that's a message I would really like to put out for content creators. Okay, managers are great, but please make sure they add value to the process. And if they're not adding value to the process, then maybe reevaluate how you want to work with them. Because I have definitely seen it work for a few people. But it has to be collaborative. It can't just be कि वो forward कर रहे हैं, एक rate lock कर रहे हैं. I understand your point that they managers absorb a lot of the, you know, work and a lot of the tension, and they just, you know, manage it, and then वो influencer तक पहुंचती नहीं, and influencer can focus on the creativity and the content creation. But in actuality ये होता नहीं है.
हाँ, अगर ये हो रहा है तो that's if your manager is not doing that, fire your manager.
Seriously.
जिससे मुझे ये भी होता है. Another reason that I kept a manager was एक the influx of messages, I couldn't handle it. ठीक है, मैं काम कब करूँ अगर मैं ये कर रही हूँ. पहले ये होता था. दूसरी चीज़ ये होती थी, और फिर उसमें ये होता था कि बहुत सारी चीज़ें मिस हो जाती थी that were actually so important for me क्योंकि मैं कर ही नहीं पाई. Another thing was कि you know, when I like to focus on my creativity and my work, जो मनी एस्पेक्ट है ना, इट कैन रियली मेक यू वेरी बिजनेस माइंडेड एंड कमर्शलाइज. और फिर इतनी आप खप्पों में पड़ते हो बिकॉज यू वांट टू डू थिंग्स, बिकॉज आई एम अटैच्ड टू माई कंटेंट पीसेस, राइट. सो जब आप कम्युनिकेशन भी वो वाली कर रहे हो ना, तो बहुत कॉन्फ्लिक्ट आता है. प्लस मेरी वीकनेस है, आई हैव ट्रबल आस्किंग फॉर मनी. You know, I grew up as a people pleaser. तो मेरा ये होता है कि if I'm negotiating with someone ना, मुझसे वो मैसेज ही नहीं लिखा जाता कि मुझे इतने पैसे चाहिए.
But a manager can do it on your behalf more effectively. I agree with all of that.
Because मुझे होता है, and my manager like वो मेरी खुद ही रेट्स बढ़ाती रहती है when she sees कि अब टाइम आ गया है, and she's the one who does it for me, because मुझसे वो होता ही नहीं आया. I've grown up as a people pleaser. I've had to unlearn a lot of things. You know, मतलब मुझे बड़ा मुश्किल लगता है कहना कि नहीं मैं आपको डिस्काउंट नहीं दे. लाइक अगर मुझे कोई कहता है ना प्लीज़ कैन यू डू इट, या वही कॉज के लिए है वो है, तो मेरे लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है कहना कि नहीं यार प्लीज़ आई डिजर्व मनी फॉर दिस, राइट. सो माई मैनेजर इज एबल टू डू दैट. You know,
it's interesting that you bring that up, because I feel like a lot of people do have managers because they don't know what to charge, and उनको लगता है कि उनके manager उनको guide कर सकेंगे और बता सकेंगे. I think when you guys were starting out ना, एक industry में average था, and you all followed that. All of you content creators of that time,
we created that.
Yes, you created a standard, and I know कि सबका same होता था. अब ना बहुत disparity है in the rates, and sometimes I think people feel कि if they're not represented by someone, they won't know what to charge. So वो उस pressure में आके कि
but the people that they're hiring also don't know the industry. They're just hiring some friend, some random person.
हाँ, अक्सर ये भी होता है कि your friend is managing you,
or even
your sibling is managing you.
आपने किसी जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल शार्क टैलेंट है या मैड मीडिया है, जो भी इन लोगों के पास है अपने, और उसमें हैं अच्छे लोग जिनको आता है, लेकिन दे आर ऑल्सो हायरिंग अ लॉट ऑफ यंग पीपल हु डोंट नो द इंडस्ट्री दैट वेल, राइट. मतलब उनको नहीं उसमें एक्सपीरियंस.
इट्स ऑल्सो जस्ट अबाउट मास मैनेजिंग ना. मास मैनेजिंग आई थिंक इट डजंट वर्क. अगेन बहुत क्लोजली अगर वर्क कर रहा हो, एंड वो रिलेशनशिप कैन ओनली एस्टैब्लिश व्हेन यू आर बिग इनफ टू गिव दैट मैनेजर इतनी पे या इतनी कमीशन ना, सो आपको भी इतना, यू नीड टू बी बिग इनफ टू बी एबल टू डू दैट. सो आई फील न्यू कमर्स या स्मॉलर अकाउंट्स डोंट नीड मैनेजर्स.
They don't need वो तो I agree with. Smaller accounts
Another
नहीं.
difficulty with managers that I've personally noticed is कि brief उनको pass on करना नहीं आता.
ठीक है. हाँ.
Because देखो, एक ब्रीफ आई गिव टू यू, यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द ब्रीफ ना. अब मैं आपको एक ब्रीफ दे भी दूँ, आई गिव यू ऑब्जेक्टिव ये है, प्रोडक्ट ये है, दिस इज व्हाट द ब्रांड वांट्स यू टू डू, दिस इज अ रेफरेंस वीडियो, व्हाटएवर. If you are directly communicating with the agency, you can ask questions, they can be back and forth.
Yeah.
The agency can give you clarity on the spot. When your manager is just passing it on to you as a forwarded message, oh aapne ye karna hai, there is no conversation. Because it's already brand, agency, influencer. Now it's brand, agency, manager, influencer. Manager is not involved in content creation, so usko content creation ka most of the times nahi pata hota. Agencies know, but agencies need to be able to communicate for you guys to find out what kind of content is needed, and when that communication doesn't happen, so we do try as an agency to give a very good brief in which we also try कि हम reference videos भी डालें, अब हम उन्हें clearly बताएं कि brand की क्या requirements हैं, what are the talking points, what things you need to cover, which are do's and don'ts. Because some brands also want कि lighting कैसी हो video में, you know, background कैसा हो, what kind of these things that, you know, that influencer can't go back and change. But sometimes those things, the essence of the brief isn't just captured in that one message. There needs to be some conversation, and there needs to be some back and forth, and sometimes the influencer has questions as well that they might not be able to directly, you know, sometimes वो कह देते हैं मैनेजर से कि वो सिर्फ ये एक बात पूछ दो. And
हाँ, no, I agree with you. So हम लोग पता है क्या करते हैं, हम लोग ये बहुत अच्छा you brought it up, so I'll just share what we do कि जहाँ creatives होती है ना, तो अगर थोड़ा सा भी कहीं कुछ समझ नहीं आ रही ना, कैंपेन अगर लॉक कर दी है मैनेजर ने, वही मनी आपका फाइनलाइज हो गया है, KPIs आपके फाइनलाइज हो गए सब, उसके बाद हम क्रिएटिव्स की मीटिंग रखते हैं with the agency and the brand if required. क्योंकि कभी कभार तो it's very simple, brief आगे हो गया, mostly it's very simple, right? लेकिन जहाँ required होता है तो we always keep a
meeting.
And
again, yes, we've had that,
which my manager by the way arranges. वो भी उसका काम है, तो वो arrange
and
करती है.
I've had managers say this कि oh, the influencer needs clarity, let's get on a call. I've had managers, but I've also had managers who have not said this. They've passed it on to their influencer. Their influencer isn't clear, and their influencer has gone ahead and shot a video. And shoot करने के बाद, after sending it to us, they're like, because you know, brands sometimes have dress code guidelines that are very particular, या इस तरह की चीज़ें जो लोग फिर completely ignore कर देते हैं. And then they say कि oh, उसने हमें time पे inform नहीं किया, हम पूछते रहे कि what will you wear, what will you do, and that's not good enough. If you've already shot a video that doesn't comply with the brand guidelines completely, right? Completely आपने comply नहीं किया, it's a waste, and then the influencer has to go back and reshoot. So
and that's not fair. उन्हीं को नुकसान हो रहा है.
So I just feel like again a lot of it comes down to communication. A lot of it comes down to we need better communication. Same with brands. I feel you need better communication to understand what they want from their campaign. Different brands want different things from their campaigns.
And lazy managers cannot do their job. And you said कि mass में manage करना, I think that's a big flaw, because that manager, like every influencer's manager, needs to have a very clear relationship with the influencer that they're working with. And if you're managing way too many people that you have, then you don't care about the relationship, right? आप हर किसी से आप quality over quantity पे खेलो ना, like
हम ना sometimes the managers are even afraid to ask their influencers. उनको डर भी लग रहा होता है कि वो आगे से गुस्सा ना हो जाए, या वो कह दे कि you know अब मैंने पूछ लिया, I can't ask again, you know वो नहीं करती, वो accommodate नहीं करता, you know, like stuff like that. And
then you're failing as a manager.
And then
you need to be able to do this. It's important.
It's like and you know, they have a right to say no as well to things, but at least have the chain of communication open ना, कि simple सी कोई बात होगी, and they'll be like oh अभी वो busy हैं, चले मैं try करूँगा या try करूँगी to ask them, and you're like why will you try, why can't you just have the conversation? So it all comes down to communication. Communication needs to be much better across the board, you know, between, and I even have some clients who actually are happy to have a direct conversation with influencers, which I think is great. if you can bridge the gap and you can have like a conversation with the, if it's needed, right? For a lot of projects it's not needed, आपको ज़रूरत ही नहीं है कि आप brand से direct जाके बात करो, but if there is some certain projects that require you to have a conversation with the brand as well, you should do it. It's good to get a better understanding of what is required from you, and it's good to then deliver a higher quality product, like a better video, if you actually have that conversation. So communication pe, I think we need to really work on the communication channels.
I think communication is everybody's win-win ना.
Yeah,
तो अगर
it
बेहतर
is.
communicate
It
कर ले
is.
तो फिर कोई खप का वो point नहीं आएगा फिर.
It definitely is. And even I think post-campaign communication should be there. A lot of times we have to chase people for stats. I feel like people should be sending their stats in. This is the results that you got from me.
Yeah, but then brands are also not paying them, na. It's a bit annoying. कि यार आप पैसे तो दे दो हमारे काम के.
Close the loop. That's true. That's true.
मतलब it's just like हमने तो see, I just find it so unfair कि brief बहुत जल्दी आ जाती है सारी demand influences से.
Everything is urgent. Everything is urgent. But the payment isn't urgent.
Yeah, they make us sometimes do campaign in 4 days, 3 days. करें harass करते हैं.
अपना campaign क्या हम मुझे brief मिलती है कि आप अभी brief में लिए आज Friday होगा, Monday को पहला content चाहिए.
कैसे करें?
It's not possible.
It's not possible, right? And then sometimes like we really do bend over and we do it.
But then the payment is really delayed. So same with me. If I'm saying कि I need an advance, you want to work with a macro influencer, उस influencer की demand है कि उसको advance payment मिले. A lot of the times they're not able to process it, and we have to do it ourselves to get the work done. Because obviously I only also get paid if the work is done. So it is difficult, and again some brands do it. वो कर देते हैं या they give you a timeline and they follow through on it, and I respect that.
Yeah.
You know, actually I've never had a brand not pay me ever, but I know there are agencies who don't even sometimes उनके पैसे भी नहीं मिलते उन्हें. So like I've been very lucky. Most of my clients have been good with payments. I've had clients that have delayed payments at times, but at least they've been open about it and said कि oh ये delay आ रहा है, ये हो रहा है, right?
Can you also address कि a lot of the times agencies they lie about how much an influencer is charging, because that also happens.
Yes, I think that does happen.
So for example, मैंने अगर कोट किया एजेंसी को मैं इतना चार्ज करती हूँ तो वो उस पर 2 लाख और ऐड करके उनको बोल देंगे and they'll keep that money in their own pocket.
Oh wow.
Because they make the payment.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things. I've also heard that some agencies give commission to influencers. Like something like that, where they're like, oh, the influencer gives a commission to the agency for locking them. If you pitch me and get me work, then I will pay you an amount of that. Because I've had some brands say that to me.
A lot is going down there.
Yeah. So there are shady practices as well that I've also heard of, that I'm not 100% sure कि how much of it is true, what's going on, because मुझे भी like brands ने बताया कि you know this is happening in the market, or can you be sure that this is not happening, who you pitch is not. Because I've also had apparently some influencers go to brands and say कि we know you won't work with us because हम agencies को commission नहीं दे रहे, we're not, and they're like what is going on? Yeah, because a lot in the heat of the moment apparently people also DM brands and say stuff like this. So I don't know, like these things apparently happen and they are a bit shady, but payment itself, the entire process is just because you know what happens is an agency, like at least in my case, what we have to do is we have to wrap up an entire campaign and then we invoice it. So if I have 10 influencers and let's say you're the very first influencer to post, and after you there are like 9 other people who have to post, I can't invoice your work.
I have to wait.
Yes, there's a process. So I have to wait कि काम खत्म होगा फिर मैं invoice करूँगा. Sometimes the campaign is, let's say, only a week long, that's fine, or 2 weeks long. Sometimes the campaign is a month long and you've posted in the first week, someone's posted in the last week, and I'm invoicing it then
at the end of that.
So then in my case at least, what I've done is to kind of get payments through on time is that we have a cycle कि we say कि we'll pay you in 30 to 40 days max, and जब किसी और की payment आती है, like किसी भी brand की payment आती है, we try to use that money to whoever's payment is falling due in the 30 to 40 days, right? Yeah. So does that make sense? It's like a cycle.
I'm understanding that. Yeah.
So we have to be very responsible because we want to have that relationship where the influencer trusts us and wants to work with us or through us with a certain client. But I feel like a lot of agencies don't do that. They just wait until usi brand, like, you know, they'll wait until a brand pays and वो भी फिर वो hold on करते हैं for a while, and then they release the payment to their influencers because most brands take, I think, maximum 2 to 3 months. 2 to 3 months लग जाते हैं payment में. With some brands you can negotiate earlier terms. With some brands you can get advances. But it does all come down to cash flow management.
By the agency.
Yeah, by the agency.
And
getting
like
your payments through.
Yeah, but I also feel like वही बात है ना कि sometimes because of one brand or the other, agency भी बहुत difficult spot में होती है because a lot of the influencers are waiting for their payment.
Yes. एक client delay कर दे, yes.
और फिर आप क्या करते हो कि फिर किसी और ब्रांड के मनी आप उन जो पहले से वेट कर रहे हैं उनको दे रहे होते हो, फिर इनका भी डिले होना शुरू हो जाता है, and that brand still hasn't paid. I think it's a huge mess.
That has become an issue, and that's an issue that because the thing is, in the current economic situation, everybody wants an advance payment now. Because obviously the value of money is constantly going down. So अगर लोग wait करेंगे, inflation भी हो रही है, PKR is devaluing, nobody wants to wait and have their payment on hold. So I have now to my clients said कि you need to expedite payments. A lot of my clients do expedite payments. Some don't. Some really don't. And it is tricky. It is tricky to manage it. I think managing cash flow as a business owner is very, very tricky. You really do have to, and at times I'm even like, brands ये भी कह रहे होते हैं कि आपको, we're going to pay you. Why are you creating noise? Yeah, why are you putting up a fight? Or why are you demanding it? But like you said, it's unfair, right? If you've given me a brief and you've said you want your work done ASAP, and we have bent over backwards to make sure, worked late nights, chasing people, getting your content up, but payment में कोई
urgency नहीं है.
It's unfair.
ये बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. And sometimes this is the norm, I feel like, of the industry कि content put up करने में बहुत urgency होती है. And you're just like, आप
you are losing your mind. Yeah, and you are one. Like, imagine us having to deal with 10 to 12 people for a particular campaign, and everything is urgent. And sometimes sometimes brands are like, उनको 2 दिन हो गए हैं, product गया, shoot क्यों नहीं किया? And I'm like, 2 days is nothing.
Yeah, and because this is not the only campaign
they're working on. Yes.
कुछ जो है वो बहुत पहले से आई हुई हैं और उनकी अब deadlines हैं, तो obviously वो करेंगे.
And then if I say, but on the flip side, if I say, oh, can you get me the advance in 2 days because this person wants an advance for them to be able to shoot, नहीं आएगा. 2 दिन में तो कहीं से advance नहीं आएगा.
Yeah.
So it is difficult. Yeah. It is difficult, and I mean, I think people are right to demand an advance now. Given, I think brands will have to evolve their ways of working because कोई भी ना इतना आपको credit अब नहीं देगा. Nobody is going to give you a credit of 2 to 3 months now. The situation, the economic situation doesn't allow it.
Doesn't allow them. Literally, they need the money.
They need the money. I have a lot of money on the line at the moment that I've paid to creators because I had to and because they wanted it expedited. And I'm waiting
you
for
still haven't gotten
and I'm waiting for the brands to pay, and it is because obviously I want to work with the brand as well. I want to work with the content creators as well. I need to find a middle ground. I think some people who work with us frequently know and trust us, so वो इतना show नहीं मचाते. But again, it's not like the right way of doing it, right? Like आप किसी के पैसे लेके बैठे रहो for like months.
और उन्होंने काम कब का कर दिया.
Yeah, but again, I would still say my clients are very good with payments.
That's
like
good.
Most of my clients are very good with payments, and I've never had a client not. And if there is a delay, they at least, it's also about acknowledging it कि delay हुआ है and we're working on it, or we're trying to, it's simple.
Yeah.
Basic thing कि आप at least acknowledge तो करो ना कि एक delay है, are you going to try and get the payment through. I find it very like it's unfair when acknowledgement भी नहीं है. And I think I've only had that happen once or twice, but they're just like this.
I'm sorry कि delay हो रहा है वो. But it's like, oh, that's the process. That's how long it takes. So एक बहुत gaslighting होती है आपके साथ.
That is very unfair.
That's very unfair.
Because you have to understand कि if you, and sometimes I've had people even apologize कि oh sorry, like it's out of our hands. We're trying to get it through. But in most cases मुझे इतने different, and I think I'm very, very lucky in that regard because I know बहुत because like you said 1.5 years, oh god, I would
that was one brand, but हाँ, and I have 7 months भी एक दफ़ा हो चुका है हमारे साथ. But हाँ, and like Hadia इस तरह भी होता है कि हमारा rent is due, we've done a lot of work for brands, we have zero in our bank because we like मजाक नहीं करी, असल में zero, क्योंकि we've done a lot of the work, so हमारी accounting में आ गया था, but it's not liquid.
It's not reflecting in your bank account
yet. So हमारी accounting में तो चला गया, but so that's how we manage. But we don't have that money, and we're just waiting on that money कि भाई a lot of the times because of brand we literally have nothing in our accounts because the payment hasn't come yet.
तो इसलिए तो
और
advance
हमारी
का इतना-
ज़्यादा प्रायोरिटी जो है, because we have a team, वो टीम होती है. हमने चलो ठीक है, उनको पे करना है हमने.
Like
How do
I
we
want to pay influencers on time because, like I said, it's like I'm responsible. I'm their POC for payment. So a lot of influencers don't care brand kya keh raha hai. For them, it's like you hired us for the project, get our payment
Get
through.
our payment.
Which is fair enough, right? Because you are their point of contact. So it is a responsibility, and as a business owner, you don't want to delay these things.
No, and
It's
like these people are employed in my team. उनकी first को salary जानी होती है. So the brands need to pay me because like इन लोगों का livelihood आपके ऊपर dependent होता है.
No, I feel like payment is a huge issue,
Yeah.
and it's probably the biggest issue for content creators. To be in this field, you really do have to. Everything is on, like a lot of things are on credit. So you're working on credit, and then your cash flows are upset. You're not getting, and a lot of people are demanding advances इसलिए, and I think they're right to do so.
Yeah.
They're right to do so, unless of course you know कि आपको एक certain fixed timeline में मिल जाएगी payment, and you can trust the person that they're going to get it to you on that time. Then it's also fine, I feel, because at least आप plan कर सकते हो ना कि चलो I'm going to get the payment in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I can plan around it. If there is no set timeline and it's like 2 महीने भी हो सकते हैं, 3 महीने भी, how can a person plan their cash flow? They can't. You have bills to pay, you have expenses to manage. You don't know when the inflow is coming, but the outflow is fixed.
Yeah,
Outflow की
exactly.
fixed date है.
हाँ.
So then you can't manage things. So either you need to be very respectful of timelines that you yourself are committing to, or you need to make an advance
payment. Yeah.
But advance इसलिए भी tricky होता है ना, because you don't know कि काम होगा नहीं होगा, कैसा होगा, will it get wrapped up on time? There are lots of things to go into an advance. I don't think I've ever had an issue after I've paid in advance. Apart from I think maybe once when someone couldn't do the work and then they obviously returned the amount.
Money.
Yeah, but most of the time when you pay in advance, the work does come through, so it's not an issue. Okay, advance is such a big thing, you can't do it.
Chalo, I think that's really wraps up a lot of the conversation around influencer marketing and the industry in general. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? We already spoke for I think 2 hours.
Really?
19 minutes.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize. You can see what you want to use and not use. Wrapping up thoughts. No, I think I pretty much covered everything.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that I really, really hope that the influencer marketing industry in Pakistan does become more strategic and it does become more streamlined, the entire process, whether it's payments, whether it's brief, whether it's the way work is managed, because there is so much potential. And I feel like our creators should be, like, we have such talented people in the country who can really go places if they're given the right platforms and the right voices to show their work. And I feel globally already content creators को इतनी opportunities मिल रही हैं, whether it's in India or it's in Europe and I feel like we should be getting there as well with our creators. We should be having more strategic partnerships. We should be having them as brand ambassadors for big brands. Our content creators should also be going and representing us with global brands and on global platforms. So I think that can only happen once we पहले locally उनको value करें, appreciate करें,
respect दें,
respect करें उनके profession को, उनके work को, and give them the right support for them to be able to grow and get give value to the local market and also derive value from it. It's a two-way street. So if you want 100%. Influencers to boost your economy and get you sales, you also have to give them the same monetary value and return as well for them to be able to do their work. So I'm hoping that in the coming years we're able to see more growth in the space and more strategic partnerships and more value for both sides, so that the industry is able to grow, because there is so much potential in influencer marketing, and I really respect what influencers are doing, and I really hope we get to that point where it
gets more recognition.
It gets more recognition.
And the process gets better as well.
Yeah, the process gets better so that the work, because abhi the work is really stressful. Everything is urgent, kuch plan nahi hota. Maybe in coming years brands have like a whole calendar and they know exactly unne kaun si campaign mein kahan. Abhi bhi har pata hota hai, but still brief late hi aa raha hota hai. But I'm hoping in the coming years, the whole process is more streamlined, and the value that we can derive both ways is there for all parties involved. It's not just like ek bande ko value mile ya so yeah, those are my ending thoughts. And thank you so much, Hamna. It was great talking to you, like always.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this with me. बहुत मज़ा आया. I feel like, you know, मतलब बहुत मुश्किल होता है to find people to have these conversations with. Real life में live, we're all just busy doing the work, but we're not having these conversations properly. मतलब I feel like conferences और उन पे वही घिसी पिटी बातें हो रही हैं, in depth discussions नहीं हो रही हैं that can actually make that change. You know, वो बड़ी surface level पे हो रही हैं जो कि पिछले 4 सालों से हो रही है, which opens my eyes to the fact कि मतलब things should have been different by now. Yeah,
I agree. That's why I'm saying I hope they are in the coming
Thank
years.
you so much for tuning into this episode of Happy Chirp. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned a lot from it. I personally think it was so insightful for a lot of people who are looking at the industry from outside, so insightful for people who have entered into the industry now, and I think a lot of people who have been in this can resonate with this. So yeah, I encourage you to share it with people who you think this is relevant for. Don't forget to leave your comments below as well. I'd love to read them. What are your thoughts? And there's just so much learning for, I think people who are aspiring to be in this industry as well. So don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Allah Hafiz.